Howdy, and welcome to another episode of Adult Onset Horsemanship. I'm your host, Daniel Dolphin.
These words are from a few past bit course participants. Joyce writes, "For me, bits have been the most confusing part of having horses. You've made it very easy to understand. Not everyone is good at teaching, but you are. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. It definitely benefits the horse and rider relationship." Catherine writes, "You make the content very watchable. It could be very dry material otherwise, and I hadn't thought about this, but part of what might have been putting me off all these years is the thought that learning would be a bit of a drag. If learning is made interesting, any subject can be appealing. You have a God-given talent for this. I'm surprised you're not on TV." And Lauren says, "Finally, I have been looking for someone to explain bits in an easy to understand and concise way. This makes so much sense as to what the bit is doing when I am giving pressure with my reins. I feel like everything else I've watched made this so complicated, and I still never understood the mechanics." Would you consider yourself confident in your selection and usage of bits? Do you trust everything you've been told about bits and how they affect your horse? How's that social media research coming along? Well, I've got an offer for you to refuse. A large chunk of my career as a horseman has been dedicated to learning how and why bits function and sharing that knowledge with others. I want to help you and your horse, and I know that I can. If you'll allow me to guide you on this understanding, I make you 3 promises. This will be worth the time and money you put into it. This will not seem like a chore. I've taken a lot of pains to make the content easy to watch, funny, and engaging. And you'll never look at or ride a horse the same way again. We've just opened enrollment for our next masterclass of thebitcourse.com. Cohort Foxtrot will begin on January 9th. Do you want to supercharge your progress with your horse this year? Do you want to add a professional service and certification to your repertoire? Right now, we've got our holiday sale in effect. From now until December 31st, both our self-guided and masterclass bit courses are 25% off. Simply use coupon code YANDHOW, no spaces, at checkout. Give your riding the best gift of all, knowledge and hands as light as a snowflake, yet skilled as a surgeon's. Just to sweeten the deal, the self-guided course access has been extended to 21 weeks. So you can get it for yourself now and still have plenty of time to get through it after the holidays. Purchase of the self-guided course also comes with a $300 credit on any upcoming masterclass course, in addition to any other deals we may have going on at the time. While masterclass courses are our flagship and most intensive course, you can't go wrong with taking the self-guided course anytime. You must purchase before the 31st to take advantage of the 25% off deal, though. We'll see you in the course.
After hearing about him for quite a while, I was privileged to actually get to meet our guest today at an event we were both at here this past spring. Ty Evans of TS Mulemanship is a pretty cool clinician, and he occupies his own little niche of this world, kind of like I do with the bit stuff. Ty, along with his wife Skye and daughters Ellie and Swayze, travel worldwide teaching mulemanship clinics. These clinics are geared toward helping mule and rider build a connection that lasts and focuses on helping the human have a better experience with their mule, and for the mule to have a better experience with their human. Ty enjoys helping individuals establish a partnership with the mule to develop clearer communication between each other. The style of mulemanship Ty teaches not only works great for mules, but is also very much applicable to horses and donkeys as well. At Ty's clinics, the main goal is to bring out the best in the mule, and by doing so, it also brings out the best in the people. I'm also going to say here that Ty has a fantastic podcast called Everyday Mulemanship that you should all check out. Interesting guests on there. He's a good interviewer, a lot of experience. I have, since meeting him, been binging that podcast, and he's got 200 and something episodes out there to catch up on. So Very good stuff. Tickled to meet him, Ty. Tickled to have this conversation with you. How are you this morning?
Heck yeah, bud. I'm good. And since you put me here on your show, I'm gonna have to get you on my show now. It's just the way it's gonna work. We're gonna have to
Absolutely.
do it.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Oh, there was something else that I wanted to mention here before I forget. On your homepage of your website, you've got all your clinics where people can sign up and do a deposit. And for the month of June only, Ty is offering free shipping on all of those clinics. So uh
Yeah, go daddy. I use GoDaddy for that. And it's like, okay, how do I've called them. I said, how do I just make it? I don't need shipping. They're signing up for a class. They're like, well, and they're really super helpful people there. So not. But yeah, so you can get free shipping on the clinic. Yeah, I don't
I
know what that
like it.
means, but
I was
whatever.
hoping that was on purpose myself, but
Yeah, yeah,
when I first put out my DVD on bits and stuff, this was back in 2018 or 19 or something like that. But anyway, I put on the bottom of it that it was GMO and gluten free because I mean, why not advertise, right? It just here's a little
yeah.
bonus for you there. Yeah.
That's right. Dairy free, gluten free. Yeah, all the
Uh-huh.
stuff. Yeah. Oh, good
Well,
old technology. I had no idea. When I was a kid, and people asked me what I want to be when I grow up, or whatever. And back then, I just said horse trainer or mule trainer. And I just dreamed about just riding all day long. I had no idea how much I would be on the computer to run a business like this. I had no clue. I didn't even cross my mind. But there's so many things there, with the website and we got a video library and stuff and all the video crap and then the podcast and man, I spent a lot of time on a computer and here we are doing a podcast right now on a computer. So had no
yeah.
idea.
How about the video and stuff too? Like I've done a lot of it to this day. Like the first 10 minutes is awkward as could be trying to have a conversation with a camera. Like I mean,
Yes.
people cannot appreciate how weird that is. Like it's just yeah, surreal.
Yeah, it's funny because my wife up to this point my wife has done most of the filming for me. And it's funny because I know exactly what you're saying. You'll be going, and then like my wife, she'll just be shaking her head like, no, no. She's just like, cut, no. And then sometimes she just is like, start over. Or you don't realize it, but like you'll snort in the mic or something.
Yeah.
You spit. And she's like, don't do that in the microphone. Sorry,
Oh,
I'll do it
yeah.
again.
I, I'm gonna do a t-shirt on this one day, but it's one of those truths that the
Mhm.
hardest part about being a good horsemanship clinician is good audio. That really
Yeah.
is like that's the most difficult part is good audio because yep, not something I anticipated. Yep.
It's the same thing, well, even at a live clinic. I mean, you could be teaching something that's just gold, or at least you think is gold, right? And, you're on a roll, but, the speakers are bad, the audio's bad, people can't hear you, can't understand you, and it really doesn't matter what you say if they can't hear you. I have spent
Hmm.
a lot of money on a sound system and speakers, and then it took me a long time to find a really good mic that will have the coverage um, like of a 300-foot arena. It's like, all right, well, what if I get cleared down the other end? I bought so many different mics and they'd cut out, like 150 foot. And anyway, so yeah, all that stuff that, man, it just had nothing to do with saddling up a horse or a mule and going for a ride. Yeah, yeah, I had no idea that I was gonna be a audio expert and a, you know, editing expert. I'm not an expert.
Hmm.
I'll say that. I'm still not an expert. I shouldn't say that word. So, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah. Definitely not stuff you anticipate when you get
Mhm.
your ambition. All right. Well, we start everybody off with our icebreaker questions, and these are for points and prizes. So you want to be on your A game with this, Ty.
Okay.
If you were a Jedi, what percent chance is there that you would misuse the Force?
0. I'm pretty straight laced guy. My, I had a nickname when I was rodeoing. You'll think this is funny, but when I was rodeoing riding broncs, my buddies they called me the bishop because I was
Oh, I
they,
can.
they'd go out and party or whatever, and I'd be like, I'll have water. You ever seen 8 Seconds? Of course you've seen
Uh-huh.
8 Second. When they
Yep.
go to the bar and
Get a
Lane
Coke.
Frost orders a Coke. Yeah, yeah, that's me.
I believe you. Yep. I believe you are still fun to hang out with though. So
Oh,
uh,
well, I can have fun. Yeah, I can have fun drinking water. But yeah, yeah, that's probably 0% chance of misusing it, I suppose.
morning or evening?
Oh, you should know this answer by now. Morning for sure.
Mm, yeah.
I love mornings. I get my best work done in the mornings. Uh, Evening rolls around and I don't know, I guess I probably get a little bit lazy, but I love a good morning. Good summer morning, especially up on the mountain, like on a pack trip or something. Oh man, those early mornings are just the best. I love them. So, morning all the way.
How long do you dunk a cookie in milk?
Oh, I probably 2 seconds. I can't, I don't want it to be soggy. I don't want it to, I don't want it to fall in the milk. And I'm an Oreo guy.
Okay.
So,
All right.
you got to be very strategic with those Oreos, because a little,
Mm-hmm.
little too long and they're gone. So,
Mm-hmm. All right. This one involves a little math, so be on your feet. All right. If you were abducted by a group of mimes, what are the odds that they would do unspeakable things to you?
they wouldn't. Or wait, no, they would. It'd all be unspeakable things, right? Yeah, hold on. Oh yeah,
100%.
there you go. Yeah, 100%. I knew you was gonna throw something at me with all your jokes. Yeah,
It's icebreaker. Yeah.
that's
You're
right.
loose. Some people you really kind of have to rattle them out
Yeah,
of their shell a
yeah,
little
yeah,
bit.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah, yeah. I was wondering, like, he's gonna say something. He's gonna do something to me that, yeah, I'm gonna have to think through this. So,
this should be an easy one for you. What is the best horse movie?
oh, best horse movie. Oh man, have you ever seen? Well, I got a lot of them, but they'd all be like 90s and stuff because I don't watch much for movies these days. Too busy, I
Hmm.
guess. And there's nothing good these days, it seems. But did you ever see Last of the Dogmen?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh
Yep.
man, there's some cool scenes in there with those horses and stuff, like going through the waterfall and yeah, I really like that one. That comes to my mind first. My favorite horse movie, well, it's got lots of horses in it, was John
Uh,
Wayne and the Cowboys. I mean, that was a good one. I
hmm.
I watched I would watch
Classic.
that
Yep.
scene with I'd watch that scene with Crazy Alice over and over and over again. I just loved it. So, yeah, I got a bunch of them, but yeah, Last of Dogman, I don't know, there's a lot of cool scenes in there.
Beautiful blue heeler in that movie too. Yep.
Oh yeah. Everybody wanted a healer after that movie.
What skill or technique do you not have with a horse that you admire in someone else and wish you did have? So this could be like farrier work or body work, chiropractor, or dressage, any kind of a thing with a horse that's something you
Yeah.
hadn't dipped your toe into but would like to.
Yeah. Well, I've done a bit of farrier work, but I'm not good at it. So I would really love to get better at farrier work for sure. But the thing that I'd really like to know how to do, and because I can trim up a mule or a horse, I can put a shoe on, I can get by. But the thing that I can't get by with at all is all the equine dentistry stuff. I don't know how to do that, so I always got to hire somebody to do that. And I'd love to know more about that because it sure seems to make a difference. And of course, you deal with this a lot more with all your all your courses and stuff with your bits and things, because man, it sure makes a difference how that mouth, what's happening in that mouth. It sure seems to affect the whole body.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, it's everything, it seems like. So I'd like to know more about that. And maybe one of these days, maybe one of these days in all my spare time, Daniel.
Yep, yep. But that's the two things we're all waiting on: the retirement and spare time, and none of us will ever achieve either, right?
Yeah. 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 My grandfather, he told me, he's already told me, he's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure your generation and also the job that you chose, Ty, you will never retire. Hey, and I'm fine
Hmm.
with that. Actually, I'll just keep
Hmm.
going as I love every moment of my life. Like I really enjoy it. So I was like, well, if this is how the rest of it goes, I think I'm living the dream, at least living my dream. So I'll go with it. But
Hmm.
yeah, that whole spare time thing, that's a different deal.
You familiar with Jack Brainerd?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't
So
I never knew him at all, but yeah, I know of him.
I went to one of his, what I'm going to assume had to be one of his last clinics. I think he was about 93 or something, and he just sat up and I was thinking about this when you were talking about bad audio, because he was holding a handheld mic, and his arm would leak down like a hydraulic cylinder with a leak in it, and so the mic would get further and further away from his mouth, and so we wouldn't be able to hear him. And someone would say something, and he'd pick the mic back up, but he wouldn't go back and say what he just continued talking the whole time. So it was like these peaks and valleys. You'd hear him for a little while, then you wouldn't hear him for a little while, then you'd hear him for a little while. But anyway, that's what I always think about with the audio uh,
Yeah.
stuff.
Oh
But
yeah.
90,
Yeah.
and let me tell you, his mind was sharp, and his eyesight was incredible. Like he could, or I thought incredible. He could see little things like a horse that's going to take the incorrect lead at the trot.
Hmm.
He could see that sitting up in the stands watching a group of horses in the arena at 93.
Oh,
I mean,
that's
so
awesome.
anyway, yep. Who wants to retire when you can do that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess when you've built your life and you've worked to build the life that you want and do the things that you want to do, I mean, a lot of people have to wait until they retire to do that. And guys like you and I, I feel pretty blessed to
Hmm.
I'm very content with where I'm at right now and what's going on. So I'll just keep on going. I enjoy every minute of it.
Absolutely. What would you say is the most important quality of a horseman?
Oh man. I've heard you ask a lot of your other guests the same question, and I love all the answers. I think every one of them has a good answer because it's what's important to them. And I know you're asking me what's important to me, but there's a lot of them. But I kind of suspected you might ask me this, and so I've actually thought about it a little bit, Daniel. And I think awareness and or you could use the word attention. Awareness and attention are probably up there at the top or towards the top for me because all the other things, we've all heard of, feel and timing and balance and so many different aspects of these things. But I feel like if without attention and without awareness, it's hard to recognize all those other things. And so paying attention to the horse, paying attention to the mule, being aware of of it's like Tom Dorrance, he would talk about in his book True Unity. You need to be able to see the whole horse in a single hair, and it's like what are you talking about? But I think long story short, that's just awareness. Just pay attention, just be aware. So that'd probably be my pick, Daniel.
I like it, and I agree completely. I do think that's the foundational part. If you don't know your timing is bad, if you don't know this, that, or the other, then or you're not aware of it, paying attention to it, then can't improve it at all. So I'm I'm on board with that 100%.
Yeah, it's easy to talk about, man, but it's a tough thing to do because I mean I teach about it every week. awareness, but yet there's so many things that I'm unaware of. I know I am. I miss it, and I don't notice it. Uh, and it's not even just, I think, not even just awareness of the horse or the mule. It's also awareness of, your surroundings and what's going on around you and within you. Awareness of ourselves. It's funny because we'll talk about, hey, you need to pay attention to your horse, pay attention to your mule, see this and that. But if I can't even pay attention to myself, meaning the energy, the life in my body, the feel, you know, uh, man, just even my heart, controlling my heartbeat. Somebody might say, well, how can you control your heartbeat? Well, you can breathe, control your breathing, and control that life in your body. But yeah, there's a lot of awareness there. So, anyways, that's what I was going to say, Daniel. Go on with your next question.
I like it.
Mhm.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how well can you back a trailer?
I'm going to say a 7. I'm only going to say 7 because my father was a truck driver for a good long time. My dad, well, he drove a truck for a living and he rode colts for a living at the same time. I mean, basically 2 full-time jobs. You know that deal. And I've seen that guy back trailers in all kinds of places that I pray I never get into. So so in my mind, he's a 10. And if that's what it takes to be a 10, I'm content being a 7 on that. So I'll stick to 7.
Fair enough. I have seen. I have to agree. I think I'm pretty good, but I've seen some truckers do some things that I know I couldn't do. So yeah.
Oh yeah, man. Oh yeah. So I don't want any part of some of those situations. We call those situations, we call those situations. I guess those are some, yeah, there's some positions I don't want to be in.
Bay or sorrel?
I don't care a whole lot, but if you looked out in my pen of mules, I got 9 sorrel mules out there. Or no, what do I got? Yeah, I got 9 sorrel mules out there. So, uh, I guess by their fruit you shall know them. And I got a whole bunch of red mules, and I've had a lot of red horses, and I do like a good looking sorrel. So, but I've had some good bays too. I'm not too particular on the color. I guess if I was gonna go buy one, Daniel, I'm not the colors that one of the last things I judge. But yeah, I got a whole bunch of red mules. It's not hard to get a red mule though.
Yeah, I have some color questions for you later with the donkeys because, like, I'm imagining you're riding a lot of Belgium crosses, so you pretty well have the sorrel on that side. And I know we all think of donkeys as kind of this gray color, but then they have kind of the darker ones too. So we won't get into it now, but I was curious how that worked out as far as the color side of that side of the pedigree. So
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. We can get into it for sure.
dogs or cats?
I like both, but I think everybody's got to have a good dog. Everybody's got to have a good dog around. My wife definitely loves the dogs. We don't have a cat, so I guess that answers that too. Is that dogs are the thing for sure. But anywhere I go, I'll be sitting around or something, and I don't know what it is, Daniel, and I'm not asking for it, but the cats just want to come sit on my lap everywhere I go. I'm like, why does every cat want to come sit by me? And it's a typical barn cat, so it's shedding everywhere. It's usually all nasty or something. But I'll give them a little scratch and then kind of tell them to move on. But no, I like a good dog.
Do you have, so I know you still are doing a lot of driving. Do you have a road dog that you take with you or they all stay at home?
Well, currently while we're recording this, I'm on my own this week. My family had to stay home. My girl's going to a church girls camp this next week here. And anyways, so I don't got a dog or anything here. Just got me and my mules. But usually when the family comes, we have a dog that comes along. It ain't my dog, I guess. It's my wife's dog. Uh, because she ain't here with me. So
Yeah,
anyways,
yeah.
yeah, that's how it goes.
Well.
So I don't got a dog, I guess.
So next question is what breed? If Ty had his own dog and his wife didn't take it and keep it, what breed of dog or type of dog would Ty have?
You know, if I got to make this custom dog, I would want a lab heeler cross. That's what I'd want. I've never seen one, but that's what I'd like because the labs are so just wonderful, and you got to have a friendly. Me doing all these clinics with all these people, kids around all the time, people around all the time. I got to have something really gentle, and I've seen so many healers just nip people all the time, and that's annoying. Um, but the labs don't hold up good out on the trail, and they don't hold up good, in the desert. I live in Utah and ride in that dry country. So those healers, those are the toughest things I've ever seen, man. Those dogs are so dang tough. So yeah, I guess if I could pick, it'd be a lab healer cross. I don't know what that'd turn out like, and I might be totally wrong, but, but I'd try
So
it.
I'll tell you, I had one. I had this dog when I was in college. His name was Bud, and he
Mm.
was very friendly, quite smart. I taught him tons of tricks. I could have had him growl and bark separately on hand signals. So I was in college. I would use that as a party trick. So I would call him to me and have him randomly start growling at someone while they're standing there talking to me or whatever off of a hand signal nobody could see me giving him and all. But what I will say is he was probably the most cowardly dog I have ever owned. I
Really?
thought I was gonna have a cow retriever, and like
Yeah.
he was absolutely scared of everything he could be scared of. Like he was useless as far as that kind of. He was a pet and nothing more. Um,
Uh,
so
well, dang
or
it.
whatever that's worth. Doesn't mean that's how it'll always turn out. Sometimes you breed two things together, hoping to get the best qualities of both, and you get the worst of both. I think that might be what he was. But
Yeah.
anyway,
It's kind of actually like this week, I'm, being on my own, just having the mules with me. It's kind of actually nice not have to worry about a dog, like when you're traveling to have to stop and let it out all the time and do all that, I guess. It's nice to have a dog around to visit with, that's for sure. There's something about a dog, but yeah, maybe I just go without Daniel. I'll just be a lone, lonely loner.
does pineapple belong on pizza?
I like pineapple and I like pizza, but I don't like them together. So yeah, I'm never gonna order pizza with pineapple on it. I'm not gonna order Hawaiian style, no way. But I eat lots of pineapple. In fact, I had a bite of pineapple this morning. So it's just not together.
Just not together. Yep. So, what kind of pizza do you order? What's your preference there?
Okay, my favorite pizza of all, and you'll respect this because you travel as much as I do, going everywhere. When you go to the Midwest and they have that gas station called Casey's. Well, when we were at Equifest, there were Casey's gas stations everywhere. I passed three of them to get to Equifest. Remember that?
Hmm.
And Casey's has sausage and egg breakfast pizza that is so dang good. And I'd never heard of that till I went. I was in Missouri, and one of my clinic hosts, she says, "Hey, we're gonna go get breakfast pizza. You want some?" I'm like, "Breakfast pizza? No, that's not, eggs on pizza? No way." She's like, "Yeah, whatever." Anyways, so she brought back one. I was like, "Well, I'm not too shy to try. I'll try it." And oh my gosh, that was a good pizza. So that's probably my favorite pizza, breakfast pizza. But besides that, I'm pretty boring, Daniel. Pepperoni. Favorite pizza is just pepperoni. Just pretty boring. That's what I'm gonna go with.
So speaking of Equifest and all of that, um, we were all well. I don't know where you were, but the rest of us were all at a single hotel you may have been there in your living quarters trailer or something, because yeah, you drove out of there and went to another event. But so Tick Maynard had rented a car, and he had Nick, his pen wrangler, with him, and then there was Aoife, the health guy, and I. And so Tick was driving us back and forth from the hotel to the event, which was like 10 miles or something. We weren't right there next to it. And they started talking the first morning as we're driving there about fencing, sword fighting. It turns out all three of them have experience fencing. I am sitting in a car in which I am the least deadly man. And that is not a good feeling. That's not something I'm used to. It was strange. Like it was a surreal kind of moment. Like if we got in a sword fight, all three of these guys would toy with me and then kill me easily. Like that's just so that's my strongest Equifest memory right there with that realization.
Yeah, I can't remember who you was talking to in one of your episodes about that, but that was, yeah, I heard that. I was like, oh, yeah, well, I could see that in them guys, I could see them working on things like that. But hey, you know what? But if you had a rope in your hand, you'd be good to go. You just heel them and drag them off. It'd
Yeah,
work out
yeah.
if I had a
If it's
rope.
just like in what world do you expect 3 out of 4 guys in a car to have sword fighting experience in 2025? I mean, it's just kind
Yeah.
of.
Well, I would have been with you. We would have been the losers in there and the first ones to go, I suppose. But I probably run
Oh,
faster. Maybe I can't. Maybe not as fast as Aoife, probably, but I can. Maybe we could run faster than the others. I don't know.
yeah, yeah, maybe. Oh, do you have a horse industry related pet peeve?
Oh man, this is another one. Listen to all your episodes. You've had a lot of really good ones on here that I can totally relate to. It's like everyone that you've asked, I shake my head. I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, I can see that. There's a few of them. Um, I'll tell you one that kind of gets at me the most. And I try not to let pets peeve me, you know, but but if one does, Daniel, it'd be this. It'd be entitlement. And let me explain. So like just last week, well, I guess 2 weeks ago now. I don't know when this is going to come out, but first part of May, there's a big mule sale in Utah down at Bryce Canyon. Okay, and there's a mule that sold there for $90,000, which
Oh,
is that is the new, as far as anybody knows, the highest recorded sell of a mule. Nothing's ever sold for $90,000. There's been lots in the 30s and 40s and there's been some in the 50s, but never 90. But I'll tell you, it's not the prices that get me at all. I think that's great for the industry, good for them, and good for the people that can afford that. I mean, they're living the American dream. I'm into capitalism, all about it. Go for it. But the comments that people say about that mule really bug me. Well, geez, what does that mule can do? That mule better be able to poop diamonds and feed itself and yeah, that thing better be so dang broke and whatever. And I'm thinking to myself, Daniel, that mule didn't pick the price. That mule didn't put a $90,000 price tag on itself. It would be no different than if it sold for $5,000. It's just a mule. Or in the horses, it's just a horse. It's just a horse. It's just a mule. They're they're just going to be them, you know. And but when we start to put what we think is value, and for most of us, it's money that we value, which we probably shouldn't nearly as much, right? But we think, oh, well, I put this much money, it needs to do this. But that's just not the way livestock of any kind of, horses, mules, cattle, sheep, it doesn't work like that. It just doesn't work like that. There's no entitlement there. So I tell folks all the time, it doesn't matter how much you spent on that mule. It doesn't matter how nice of a barn you have, how nice of a truck and trailer, and how nice your saddle is, and the premium hay or the premium feed that you're still not entitled to anything. You have to earn it. you know. Well, I bought that mule, it better respect me. Well, first of all, the whole respect thing, we can talk about that. That's a whole different subject. You know, we can get into the brain stuff, and that's, yeah, forget the respect part. But, you know, just because you spent that doesn't mean that you're entitled to a certain behavior from them due to your money. So I guess that's a recent one. Daniel, you've had some great ones mentioned on your show. The other one used to be, and it doesn't bug me as much anymore because I don't hear it as much anymore. But when I was training for the public, it was the 30 day, the 30 day, you know, how much you charge for 30 days, you know, and what can you get done in 30 days? And you know, the truth, not a lot. You know, I just can't get a lot done. You know, it's just me. You know, I used to think I could, but now I just realize I can't. And so the 30 days, that used to be it. But now I'd say entitlement, Daniel. That'd be the top one.
Yeah. They really ought to ask the question of on the 30-day thing of, in 30 days, how quickly can I undo all of the things that you're gonna do? Because the answer is about 7 seconds. Now, if I ride them for 3 years, then it's probably going to take you like a month to undo all of the things that I do. So that time period of how long it takes to undo it, that's really the part you're paying for, right? That's the important thing.
Yes, I've
With
never thought about that. That's a great point right there. It's like, okay, well, let's talk about how long it's going to take you to screw this up. That's awesome.
the, so I'll say this too on your entitlement deal there. The realities, just for those of you out there listening to this that may not have ever been in the high performance end of the horse business, the more money you pay for a horse, the less likely it is that the owner can or will ever ride that horse. Generally speaking, when you're looking at the $500,000 stuff, that's trainer only. It's like buying a Formula One race car driver and hiring someone else to drive the car. You don't climb in that thing because you're going to go kill yourself in 30 seconds. So it's really kind of rare. Like if you have an owner that's riding those kind of horses, they're not an average owner. They themselves are actually a pretty high level, non-pro
Yeah.
who is yeah. So if people don't realize that, that's the reality of that situation. The very best horses I've ever ridden, the owner never rode. So
Yeah,
um,
that's a great point. I don't that's a great point. But I don't see that a lot in the mule world right now, you know, with mule stuff. It's still usually um I guess if you had to put it in just a category, the multitude of mule riders are trail riders. That's the main gig for sure. Definitely there's a lot more performance stuff happening these days, I suppose, but it's still mostly trail riding. And so that entitlement comes in. You know, the people making those comments that I was whining about, it was, you know, the person that's going to go use that mule and thinks that, well, I spent that on that mule. It better operate like this. But yeah, a great point you made too, that in the horse industry, in the performance horse industry, that wouldn't be the case. And you're right on the money.
barrel or spoiled, which would you rather fool with?
Oh man, that's a tough one. I got I I got reasons for both. Um, so I guess I'll tell you right where I'm at right now in my life with my family. I got young children. I got a daughter that's 12 and a daughter that's 10. And there's kids over at my house all the time, you know, and and I'm around a lot of novice horse and mule people. So right now I'm probably going to pick spoiled just because of the circumstances of who's around. You know, yeah, they're spoiled. They're probably gonna be pushy. I tell the kids, all right, well, don't go in there. You know, if the horse is gonna step on you or something like that. It's gonna frisk you for treats or something annoying like that, you know. But but I could probably tune. I usually tune that up extremely fast. So the spoiled ones, it really doesn't take much. Like for me, it's just a few days, and all of a sudden they're paying attention and they kind of line out pretty quickly. Whereas the feral ones, there'll be a little bit more danger for the kids to be around at that point. And it's going to take me quite a bit longer personally with my skills to get that feral one coming around. It'd be the difference of, difference with a spoiled one 3 days, or with a feral one, 30 days, 2 months, 3 months. I don't know, maybe longer. So today I'm probably going to go with the spoiled one, Daniel.
That's fair enough. Yep. What is your least favorite barn chore?
My least favorite barn chore is probably watering. Just filling up waters.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess I'm a little bit of a higher octane guy. I'm kind of a little bit more of a goer. So like it's funny because I don't have to do this very often. In fact, my participants, my students at the last clinic, they saw me out cleaning my own pens. And one of them asked me, said, Ty, when's the last time you cleaned your own pens? You picked up your own mule's manure? And I sat there for a second. And I said, I don't know. My kids are usually here. That's that's my kids do that job. So I'm like, I don't know. Probably been a couple years, really. And that makes me sound really spoiled, you know. And but it's funny because I can go out there and clean pens, like I was this last week, and it kind of makes me think a little while, I just kind of you just get in a groove. But just sitting there waiting for the water to fill up, I got a million other things to do, and so I'd gladly have the kids do the watering for me, except for they're the ones that forget to turn it off all the time. So then we flood the
Yep.
corral. So watering would
I,
probably be my pick. I don't know.
I overflowed one this morning. Yep. Turned it on and remembered about it 20 minutes later. So it didn't go for hours or anything, but it probably went 10 minutes longer than what it should have. So yeah, right there. And the same, my time is too valuable and I have too many things to do to stand there and wait on this. So I'm going to go do something else and then come back. And yeah,
And you forget. There it goes.
totally get.
Mm-hmm.
How about a favorite barn chore?
Favorite barn chore? I really enjoy cleaning saddles and gear. Hopefully that counts as a barn chore,
Sure.
but that would be my pick is, and I like it in the summer. I usually take a couple weeks off in the middle of summer because clinics aren't really going for me. It's not really the season and it's hot. And so go out there on them hot days and sit in the shade and clean saddles and stuff. I like doing that. That's kind of fun to me. But I guess my favorite barn chore is the ones that everybody else has to do, Daniel. I just get to go ride and have fun. That's the honesty. Yeah. I'll be honest, I just want to have all the fun, do none of the work.
Well, that's yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that just means you're human.
Yeah, that's right.
Do you have any favorite words of wisdom, like a saying that you just keep coming back to, or a mantra or something like that, that's just like that's your guiding light kind of thing?
Now, there's a couple principles that I really, really like. w- uh, this one kind of goes with a lesson I learned. So, when I was in college, I rodeoed for Utah. It was Utah Valley State College at the time. Now it's Utah Valley University, but it was a state college back then. And Louis Fields was the coach there. And do you know Louis Fields, Daniel? Do you know who he was? The
I do not.
five-time world champion bareback rider. Do you know who Casey Field is? Um, it's
That
his
sounds
dad.
more familiar.
Casey Field's
Okay.
a six. He's a six-time world champion bareback rider. And anyway, so Louis was his dad, one of my main mentors. And I remember my first college rodeo with Louis. I went there and I won the first round and I did really good in the second round and I won the rodeo. I won the average. And I'm feeling pretty good about everything, you know, because for a freshman in college to go do that, the first rodeo, that's kind of a pretty big deal. I felt accomplished and I was excited. I was pretty stoked. Well, Louis comes up to me, and Louis was a great coach, very thorough. And you were talking about Jack. and how he could see things so good. Louis was like that. He could slow down your entire bronc ride. And he could tell you, well, on the third jump you did this, on the fifth jump you did this. He could just replay it to you. It was amazing what he could see. Everything went in slow motion for him. So he comes back and he's kind of chewing me out a little bit. Well, at least I thought it was chewing out because I'm this, you know, cocky little freshman full of ego, right? And to me, it sounds like he's chewing me out. I just didn't know him well enough at the time, but he's picking apart the whole ride. And I said, when he got done picking me apart, I said, well, I won. Well, I won, didn't I? And that was a mistake, by the way. Don't say that to Louis Fields. Don't ever say that. And he turned back to me and he said, Ty, did you score 100 on either of your bronc rides? And of course I didn't. You know, I won, but I wasn't 100. And I said, no, sir. And he said, well, there's work to be done then. And that just stuck with me. And as I got to know Louis, I realized he wasn't a perfectionist, but he was pretty dang close to it. Of always trying to be better in whatever he did. And it was fun being around him because he was just a betterist. Everything like, well, can we do that better? Let's try it. Can we do this better? Let's try it. And that stuck with me. And so pretty much after every clinic I do, after every ride I have, and it's not like super conscious, I should say, but it's definitely a thought. I always think about what could I do better here? Maybe I explain something to a student and I see that there's confusion in their eyes. And I say, well, how can I say this better? How can I be better? And that goes with a principle that I really love to share. There's a retired Navy SEAL guy named Jocko Willink. You know who Jocko Willink is? He's got a great podcast too. And he's got a book called Extreme Ownership. He teaches a principle called extreme ownership, which is basically what Louis was getting after. Like, there's work to do, so you can be better. You can do better. You can take ownership of these things. And it's not the horse's fault. It's not the judge's fault. It's not the dirt's fault, the arena's fault. No, it's your fault. You can be better. And so I apply that, what Louis taught me, and I apply that principle with it. So when I'm at a clinic, like I said, and maybe a student doesn't understand, okay, it's good. It's on me. What can I do? It's not that the student's having a hard time. It's that I'm having a hard time portraying it in a way they understand. If I'm riding my mule or riding my horse and they're having trouble figuring out whatever it is I'm trying to do, go across water or do this obstacle or do this maneuver, it's not the mule's fault. It's not the horse's fault. It's on me. And it's addicting to me, Daniel, to do that, because I realize now that whenever I make those adjustments, just the littlest adjustments, the littlest changes, that it works. It comes through. Maybe I'm just leaning wrong. Maybe I use my leg wrong. Maybe I, rein position, it might be off by sometimes just a half an inch, and that might make a difference. And so I guess Louis' lesson that there's work to do and Jocko Willink's principle of extreme ownership, I guess I hit on those a lot. I think about those things a lot because they've changed my life. I know that for dang sure.
Yep. I like Jocko's video, Good. That's one of those. Have you ever seen that one? I go to for inspiration about all the bad things that are happening. Good. You know, this terrible thing happened to you today. Good. Now you have a kind of.
Yeah. It absolutely. And you just put it into our life, right? Well, all right. My my horse bucked me off. Good. I learned that dirt hurts and I will not let that happen again. Good. I'm going to do something about it so it doesn't happen again, All right. Well, this isn't working. Good. Let's make it work. Let's get it to work. And yeah, I love that video, and you apply it to your own life. It changes your perspective. I'll tell you what, though, it's harder to apply than you think, because it's just so easy for us to go down a negative road, but trying to be optimistic is one of my goals. trying to be positive is one of my goals every day. Is how can I be positive about this and do something good in the world today?
Yeah. What's the sign you put up on the fence at your clinics? You gonna have a
What
great
do you-
day today, or something like
Oh,
that?
oh, what day is it? It's the best day ever. Yeah,
All
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
like
it's the
that.
best day ever. Yeah, every one of our clinics start out. I walk in there and I'll ask them kind of in a serious way because I'm always joking with the newbies of the group, right? And I'll usually pick on a new guy or a new gal, say, "Hey, what day is it?" And they'll say, "Well, it's Thursday." I'm like, no. They're like, "I'm pretty sure it's Thursday." You know? And I'll go to the next new one. I'll say, "No, what day is it?" And they're like, May 26th. I'm like, "Nope." And they're like, you see them pull their phone out, like, "Yeah, it is." Yeah. Anyways, I finally get to somebody that knows what I'm getting at, and they say, "Best day ever." It is. It is. It's the best day ever. Any day that you get to ride your horse, be with your horses, be with your mules, just be here. It's the best day ever. We can make it the best day ever. And that attitude sure seems to affect life in many different ways, for sure.
Part of the human condition is the desire to want everything to be complicated. And it really seems like I call this the Forrest Gump effect. Have you ever met someone who was just living a great life, but they were kind of a dumb person, and you just were perplexed at how this dumb person managed to live a great life? And it's because they just followed the simple, true stuff, stuck with it, didn't need to complicate it more than that, and bam, here are the results. A great life, even though they just kept everything simple and straightforward, and we mess it up just trying to make it more than what it needs to be. Don't know why we do that,
Oh
but
man.
yeah.
I so if you ever get a chance to look up a YouTube channel called On the Range, you should do it. My buddy Morgan Mickle has this YouTube channel called On the Range, and he documents. It's a sheep outfit. Okay, they run sheep, and they got a bunch of herders from Peru, right? And these guys come up for usually 3 years. Well, they're all different times, but they come up for like 3 years at a time. But they got a herder named Pedro. Pedro lives in a wall tent about 3 months in the summer, and he lives in a sheep camp the rest of the year. And in the summer, when he's in the wall tent, okay, he's just up the canyon above my house. I don't know, usually somewhere between 5 and 10 miles up the canyon. And I help my buddies take groceries to him every summer. Every week we'll bring him a fresh delivery of groceries, and we bring meat to him and fruit, and bring the dogs dog food and feed all the things, everything you can think of. And Pedro just lives up there on the mountain in that wall tent, simple life, living on a cot in a bedroll, taking baths in the ice cold creek. And, he's one of the happiest fellas you ever meet. He's just a happy guy. He just is just so much joy. And I think, man, to me, it'd be tough being him. He's away from his family because he's married. He's got kids, and, he left his family for all this time to come make money here in the US and then go back to Peru. And but he's just happy. He's just living the best life. And it's funny because my buddy running the sheep, he said, sometimes I look at Pedro and I look at myself and I wonder which one of us has life figured out.
Yep.
Because the guy that owns the whole company, he owns this huge sheep company with the biggest in Utah. Okay. And it was his goal to do this for his business because he wanted to have this lifestyle of raising livestock, being in the mountains, being on the deserts. He wanted to have this, but yet he's the one running around all the time, and he's now delivering groceries to Pedro, who's living on the mountain, riding a horse all day, running cow dog or sheep dogs all day. Who has what figured out, right?
Yep.
So
The world will tell you that Pedro's being exploited, though, but Pedro knows exactly what he's doing, right?
Pedro loves everything about what he does. He just loves it, and it's amazing the life that he lives. And yeah, we can learn a lesson from Pedro. But if anybody wants to go on there, old Morgan has he's documented and interviewed a lot of his herders and stuff, and they talk about their life and what it's like, and very, very interesting channel.
I have to say, yeah, you have to be a lifelong optimist in order to successfully deal with sheep. In my limited experience with sheep, at least I know it's different where y'all are because it's so dry, but where we are, the parasite problem is explosive, and sheep are basically born looking for a way to die. Like it
Yeah.
is. I had a good friend that went to work on her master's project, which dealt with sheep, and they were, I forget exactly what her project was. That's been 30 years ago, but um, she had to slaughter them at the end and then do a carcass evaluation. And in order to have a guaranteed like 75 head to slaughter at the end, she had to start with almost 200.
Oh, geez.
That's
Yeah,
how
that's
bad
rough.
it is. So you're like, man, like that's a downhill. It's like
Yeah.
trying to keep water in a bucket that's got four holes in the bottom is what managing sheep is like. So
Oh
at
man,
least
that's
around here,
tough.
like, yeah.
Well, out here, we got the steep high mountain country, and the sheep do so good up in that mountain country. Um, so it's definitely good for them. And then there's a lot of places in these canyons and stuff that's just too tight and too challenging to get a lot of cattle. There's definitely places that run cattle like that, but it's the sheep do pretty well. So yeah, it just kind of depends. It's a different stockmanship game though. I have spent most of my life working with cattle, so I don't have the sheep experience. And when I go help these guys, it's because I got a whole bunch of pack mules. That's why I get invited. It's for the mule power for sure. It's not for stockmanship because yeah, it's funny. All of us could go in there try to move the sheep around. No, just leave Pedro and his dogs. Pedro and his dogs can move everything, and the rest of us just scatter them. So
Hmm.
different type of stockmanship than cattle for sure.
Hmm. Crunchy or smooth peanut butter?
Smooth. I like smooth. I like peanuts. I'll eat peanuts by themselves, but I like just smooth peanut butter.
I think here's a fun fact. If you make peanut butter from scratch, it's basically peanuts in a blender and you just blend and blend until the oils come out, and that's
There
what
you go.
makes it creamy. So, this is the fun fact. In order to have crunchy peanut butter, you actually first make smooth peanut butter and then you add peanut fragments to it. So there really is nothing, there's no such thing as smooth peanut or crunchy peanut butter because it's really smooth peanut butter with an
Peanuts, huh?
add-on. How about that? Yeah.
Hey, learn something every day, Daniel. That's a fact I needed to know.
Hey, while I brought that up, you've heard the saying, if life gives you lemons, make lemonade, right?
Yeah,
Did you know that, like your mules, lemons are hybrids that do not actually exist unless man gets involved and creates them?
I had no idea
Lemons
that.
do not exist in the wild. And so life never gave you lemons. You made that crap all by yourself.
That's
That's what the
great.
real saying should be. Yep.
That's great. That's great. That's right. I like that, man. I'm gonna have to steal that one from you. I'll be quoting you. I'll quote you at least twice, then I'll take all the glory, okay?
Sounds good. Fair enough. Yep. Like a commission and then it's yours. Yep.
Yeah, that's right. That was a good one though. Yeah, you make that crap up. That's awesome.
Would you tell us something unexpected about you?
I I don't know. Like you, my life is pretty public. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty much out on the table. Pretty much folks know about me, but um, you know what? I'm not sure, Daniel, on that one. I mean, I guess if I well, it'd be expected. I'd say a lot of people don't know that I fly fish, but I like to fly fish quite a bit, and
Mm.
I guess you'd have to kind of be around me to know that a little bit more, I suppose. like to fly fish. That's about, people ask, what do you do besides ride mules? I say, fly fish. Like, oh, so do you just, do you backpack in? What are you doing? I say, no, I ride my mules to where I want to go fly fish. So I don't know. I'm a pretty boring guy. And like I said, I like pepperoni pizza and I like vanilla ice cream. And I
Hey,
ride mules.
got to be comfortable in your own skin, right? There's
That's
nothing wrong with that. Yeah.
oh, here's something I guess that a lot of people don't know, and I is that if you're around me, I suppose if you're around me just outside of the public eye, I sing to myself all the time. I'm always singing something, and you could you know on any given day just kind of sneak up on me. I'll probably be humming a tune of some kind. Uh, and I don't sing very good, so that's why it ain't in public. But I'd be singing all the time. And my wife, she definitely exploits that because I'll be singing and humming and in my own little world, and she'll sneak up on me and scare me. And she has her own Facebook hashtag that you could type in hashtag scare Ty, and you can look up all the videos where she has scared me. And I'm usually singing in the video. Then she gets me. So there you go. I was around somebody the other day and where was I? I don't remember. I was at a clinic. We were eating somewhere and she was telling us how whenever she goes to a restaurant, she tells them that it's her husband's birthday everywhere. And the husband just is like, oh, he's just over it by now. It's just every time they go out to eat, it's his birthday. And now he just goes with it. He's like, well, I've learned just to embrace it and I get a free dessert or something. The
People seem to
humiliation is
be.
worth it. That'd be a dirty joke to play on people. But yeah.
I don't know why. I feel like we kind of do know each other, so it's like a trading stories thing, a less formal. That's good. Here's one of my that reminds me of when I was still apprenticing. I went out to dinner with my boss and some other trainers at a big show, and it was kind of they all had their wives and kids and everything, and it was a big restaurant in Fort Worth called Uncle Julio's. So they kind of stuck all the men at this table, and then the wives and kids were at this table and having their own conversations. And I'm the youngest person at the table by 15 years, so they're talking, and these two pretty girls come up and sit at a table over there within eyesight of us. They're about my age, and I'm kind of looking at them. And one of the trainers basically bets me that I don't have the cojones to just grab my beer and walk across the room and just sit down at the table and start talking with the two girls. And so I do. I'm not going to back down from a dare, right? And I wound up hitting off with them. So like 10 or 15 minutes later, I'm still over there talking to the girls. One of the trainers has this kid, and he's one of these kids that he was actually like 13 or 14, but he looked like he was 9, something like that. And so I'm sitting there talking to these girls, and I feel this tap on my shoulder, and I turn to look, and it's this boy who I only met that night a little while ago. And he looks me dead in the eye and he says, Daddy, Mom's in the car and she says it's time to go right now. And you could hear those guys erupt in laughter across the restaurant. I must have turned like 10 shades of red,
Oh
Oh,
man, that's
that was one of
good. That's
those.
way
Yeah,
good.
that was an excellent one. Yep. I'm gonna have to pay that back to somebody at some point in time.
Oh boy. Yeah,
And
yeah,
I
that's a good one. That's
I
nice.
didn't even get a free brownie out of it.
Dang it. Oh man.
Thoughts or feelings?
Well, I suppose I think I probably think too much. I probably think things through too much. Maybe spend too much time thinking about stuff. And rather than but then I think you have to think to feel. I think you have to think about what you're gonna do to feel. So it's like if I was to if I'm going to ask my mule or my horse to do something, well, I'm going to think about it. I'm going to visualize what I want to get done, and then I might. And some might argue that that's feel as well, right? That maybe your thoughts can be feel. However, I'm going to visualize it before I do something physical. So, and I guess on the other end of being a feely guy or a feelings guy, some people have called me cold-hearted and kind of an ice man because I don't get too upset about things. not not much bothers me uh, on the feely part of stuff. So,
Yeah, I can see you
anyways,
being steady, but yeah, you're not ice cold kind of yeah,
yeah,
I don't see that at all. So
yeah. I guess I just don't get riled up, or um, it's just like being around, especially rodeo and so for so long and stuff. Seeing somebody get like bucked off or whatever. I mean, just zero effect. Like it doesn't even bother me. Like it doesn't. I don't even hardly register that. Oh, yeah, you just hit the dirt. Well, outside of the rodeo world, if somebody falls off, it's like to them, it's just a huge, massive deal. And I'm like, get up. I don't know. They're like, you're cold-hearted. You need to have more feelings. I'm like, no. I think you got plenty of feeling right there when you just smack the dirt. So I don't know. Stop feeling so much and get up. I don't know. But no, back to your question, I suppose I definitely think about things more than feel, I suppose.
what would you have been professionally if not a horseman or muleman?
Oh man, I don't know. I when I was in third grade, I remember a third grade assignment. The teacher asked, "What are you going to be when you grow up?" Right? And we had to do this whole presentation on it in third grade. And I remember I go up there to the front and I say, "I'm going to be a mule trainer." And the teacher looks at me, says, "First of all, what's a mule? Second of all, what are you going to teach it to do? Like, what are you going to train it to do?" The teacher was just like, had no clue, right? And so I've always wanted to do what I've done. Like we talked about earlier, I had no idea what it would entail of and how much I do now as far as technology goes, using videos and websites and all that stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I suppose if I wasn't a horseman or muleman, for a little while I thought I wanted to be a horseshoer, be a farrier. And well, that's until I actually did it. When you get under there, you're like, whoa, that hurts really bad. That hurts really bad. So uh maybe
How do
not.
they breathe bent over like
Exactly.
that? Yeah.
Yeah, like, oh, this is hard. This is way hard. That's way too much labor. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what I would have been. I did get my I went to college. I told you I rodeoed for Louis Fields, and it was because of him that I went to college and I got a bachelor's degree. It's all his fault, you know. Uh, and I got a bachelor's degree in criminal justice.
Okay.
So,
All right.
and
Yep.
I've
That
always
was going to be
thought,
my next question if you didn't go there. Yeah, because you did kind of go to college. So, like, what was that about, Ty?
yeah,
So,
yeah,
um,
yeah. It was yeah. I got a criminal justice bachelor's degree, and I've always liked law enforcement stuff, military stuff. Always liked that kind of stuff. I guess typical adrenaline junkie type of a human, and I thought it was pretty cool. So, I guess if none of the equine stuff worked out for me in any way, I guess I could have went and been a cop. In fact, my senior year, part of the graduation process there to actually finish up one of the classes was you had to have some interviews with some prospects, career prospects, and the DEA um, recruiter was there, and one of my professors was like, "Ty, you need to go talk to this guy. I want you to go talk to this guy." I made pretty good friends with the professor. His name was Curtis Fillmore. He was a cool guy, retired DEA agent. He had spent a good portion of his career in Copenhagen, Denmark, and he'd spent a good portion of his career. In fact, there's a movie made about Curtis Fillmore. Did you ever see The French Connection way back in the
hmm
day? Yeah, yeah.
hmm
So Curtis Fillmore was the DEA agent that was on that case that arrested the Frenchman. Okay.
Okay.
So this guy's he's a cool dude, okay? And anyways, I hit it off with him. I loved his class. He was my favorite professor. And so he got me lined up with this recruiter, right? And so I'm in there visiting with them and the guy's like, "All right, well, let's get you into some testing to get you into training." And I'm like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 hold on. This is all fun and all, but I'm just trying to pass this class here." Like he's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "No, I ride mules. I mean, I was riding mules for a living there by the end of my college, I mean, I'm riding horses full time,
Hmm.
and he's like, what are you doing?" I'm like, "No, I'm gonna ride. I ride for a living." He's like, "What are you doing in here?" I'm like, "I don't know. I'm just trying to pass the class." Like, and you could see the guy, he was just so irritated with me, this stupid hick, you know. "All right, you dumb cowboy, get out of my office," type of thing, but I suppose if it didn't work out for me, Daniel, I could have at least went into training for the DEA, and I don't think that would fit me at all, but
I
it might have been
I
fun for
agree.
a
I
minute.
I was laughing as soon as you said that because I'm like of all the people I know, Ty Evans might be the one that a drug dealer would look at from like 5 miles away and go, "That's a cop." You know,
Yep.
like there's no way you're passing for some
Yeah.
scumbag, and I'm gonna buy 10 keys of coke off of you. Like
Yeah.
there's no way that you pass the sniff test of what they're looking for there. I'm
You know,
sorry. So
I know. I think it was funny because so I told you about the professor Curtis Fillmore. He and I hit it off right off the bat. Um, he calls me up. So the first day of class, we walk in there, and he has three huge tables covered with every drug that is known to man, all drugs that you could ever imagine. And he said, "Okay, class, your first assignment is to label these drugs." And I go up there and I see one that kind of looks like alfalfa. Hey, I'm like, "Well, that's probably marijuana." That's the only one I got right out of like 40 different types of drugs. I only got one of them correct. And he calls me up and he's like, you know, usually when you fail an assignment, this is a bad thing. In your case, I'm very proud of you. You don't know what it is. I couldn't. So I still got an A on that assignment by default.
yeah,
So yeah, you're
I have
right.
you talk about awareness. I had a roommate in college, and we were pretty good friends before, and I knew he smoked some stuff and all of that, and I had never been around any of that. And when we became roommates, like I had an eye-opening world that I didn't know existed before me here. I had no idea how many people were actually involved in that and how readily they could get it and stuff. And
Yeah.
he was flippant with it. We actually got a pretty big fight. He had some acid that he had on Altoids, and he had them in the little Altoids tin, and he left that out on our coffee table. And like I saw it, and like 3 days later, he looks at it and he goes, "Oh, that's where that is," and he picks it up and he tells me what it is, and I'm like, "Man, anybody that walked in here could have reached down and said, 'Oh, look, a peppermint,' and popped that in their mouth, and they're about to see dragons for 18 hours. Like, you can't just leave that laying out here in the free world where, I mean, like, can you imagine?" But
Yeah.
it didn't bother him at all. But yeah, I'm with you. I would have gotten the oregano, and that's about it. So,
Yeah.
uh, are you decisive or indecisive?
Decisive, and then I regret it. and I, and I go back and I think about it again, and I make another choice sometimes. But I don't know. You just have to decide. You got to make a choice. You got to make a choice, and then those choices lead to the next thing. So I guess I'm mostly decisive, but my wife might say I'm indecisive because of it, because I'll regret my decision pretty quick and go, well, wait a minute, but maybe if I would have just thought about it first, it would have been easier." So I'm gonna go with decisive for the most part, which makes me indecisive. I love that question on all your podcasts. It's like, I don't know. Who knows?
It's been a little surprising to me which questions yield fruit that I might not have thought, but that's one of them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's a good one.
Do you have a favorite piece of tack or horse related tool?
Yeah, I do. I like a high line. If I whenever I tell people, I'm like, when they're getting in, like somebody that's brand new getting into equine, or they don't know anything, they're always surprised to hear me say that. Like, get a high line. A high line is a great tool. You know, there's so many little habits that come from horses and mules being tied up hard to a hitch rail or to the trailer or whatever, different things. But those high lines teach them so much, you know, they're pretty historic. You know, they've been around a long, long time. You know, and them old vaqueros on the West Coast, they had stuff figured out, and they'd use those trees. I can't remember what the name of the trees are, but the trees, the branches come out real straight for a long time, and they tie up to those long branches like that, which is basically just like a high line. You know, they tied all their colts up like that. You know, and those horses walk forward. You know, their lead or their rope picks up on them, tips their nose around, and they'll roll their hinds through, and then they walk forward again. And shoot, I've watched young horses and mules sit on my high line, and they'll do exactly that. And it's like you're rolling the hinds, and they're learning how to follow a lead before you've ever even taught them anything. You know, so high line's my top tool that I love because that begins before I ever put a snaffle bit on them. I guess the only thing that comes before that would be just a good halter, a good rope halter, I suppose, or whatever. But yeah, Highline's my top one.
I like that. Nobody has given that answer yet. And I also like high lines. I have a video on YouTube on how to tie a high line and all of that stuff. It is a good tool for sure. I love those things that get stuff done safely and unproblematically without me having to be involved in them like that.
Yeah,
You know, that
exactly.
I can
You
go
can be
ride another
riding,
horse or whatever. Yeah.
you can be out there riding and you could have, you know, 4 or 5 of your horses out there tied to it. And rather than just sitting there at a hitch rail where they sit there and either learn how to paw or learn how to shake their head or hang back or just shut off. A lot of them just shut off at the hitch rail, you know. They just shut down and like glaze over. At the high line, it seems like you know, if I'm planning to ride those, I would want them to be on a high line versus a hitch rail because it keeps them like mentally stimulated and they stay kind of awake and alive versus just shut off. You know, because I've pulled them off the hitch rail too at times, and it kind of takes a minute to wake them up a little bit. You're like, hey, knock knock, anybody home? You ready to think and kind of you ready to have a conversation here? It takes them a minute, whereas the Highline they just seem to stay fresh on it. So, and then it's part of life for me. You know, I do clinics you know 8 or 9 months a year, but then I do a lot of packing and we do a lot of camping and then I help a lot of ranchers and stuff whenever I'm home and around. And the high line is part of life. My mules and my horses are going to be on a high line quite a bit. You know, that's how we're gonna keep them when we're on a pack trip. They're going to be on a high line all night. Some of them all day too. When we go out for a day ride, I'm not going to take the whole pack string, right? So a high line is definitely part of life, and they don't seem to pause bad. You know, they have that freedom to go, to move, so it seems like they make the choice to stay. Whereas if I got one just tied to a trailer all day, for example, you know, and they don't know how to stand, they don't understand. They're gonna start pawing. They're gonna paw my trailer up. They're gonna paw a hole in the dirt and whatever. So yeah, Highline's a great tool. I think everybody should put a Highline up. That's a great tool to have. And you don't have to be any type of expert. You don't have to be like any type of advanced horseman to use that tool. If you know, learn how to put it up, and it's not hard. Like you said, you got a YouTube video of it, and it's not hard to find other videos, other instructions of how to do it. And the most novice person can put up a high line and use it and get results out of it. So I like that for sure.
I guess I'll ask. So my high line lives in a 5-gallon bucket, And that was one of those things I didn't have for a long time. And like that was I'd have to untangle things and find this because my sons had found a piece of rope and now it winds up 100 yards. So now that I have this self-contained bucket, like that's been a serious step up in convenience of my highline. Now I just grab a handle and it's all right here and boom. So do you have any highline tips of things that you do that like makes your life better for that?
Well, I'll speak of yours real quick though. Your bucket idea is a great one because you said it's a step up. It's also literally a step up.
Mm-hmm.
And that little bit, just turn that bucket upside down, whatever, that little what, foot and a half or whatever it is. That's all you need just to get that much higher up in the tree or whatever. But no, I've used all kinds of different hardwares and different ways, tying the prusik knots and all types of stuff. But I found these swivels, these swivel rings, and the swivels do wear out for sure. Typical, anytime metal's on metal, it's going to wear out. So you got to pay attention to it. But before they wear out, they're great tools, and I like that because then your lead rope, having that swivel, your lead rope doesn't get all twisted where if it's tied hard, it might. And I don't usually have hardware on my lead ropes either, so I don't have a snap that swivels on my halters for the most part. So having that rope tied to your halter hard, and then if it's tied hard to the high line and the horse or the mule goes round and round, it's going to twist. Next thing you know, you come back over there and their head's sticking up. You're like, oh, geez. So those little swivel rings, and you can get those like at well, I get all my stuff as far as that kind of thing goes from Outfitter Supply. Look up Outfitter Supply. They're in Montana, and they sell great gear for things like that and all kinds of stuff. So, but good rope makes a difference. I can't. I wish I knew for you, Daniel, for your listeners, the type of rope, the name of the rope that I use. But it's a good rope makes a difference too, because if you get a rope that has too much stretch, you might think it's tight and then you come back an hour later and it's draping down and then things do get dangerous. So you got to have rope that can get tight, stay tight, but also has the flexibility if they pull on it that it's not going to, some of that rope that can get tight and stay tight, they can snap it too. So I'll have to do some research on that. I can't remember what it's called, but good rope makes a difference.
I've been thinking about for years doing a tutorial on nothing but rope. Like here's
Yeah.
the varieties of the different kinds of rope that you can get, and here's the pros and cons of them, and you know, like if you wanted to have this application, this rope makes sense, but that rope's going to be a nightmare because of it, that kind of thing. I don't know if anybody would ever watch it, but it seems I see people using a poor choice of rope all the time. So there's a need for the knowledge anyway.
Oh man, well, it does make a difference. Let's just take lead ropes for example. I've tried all kinds of different lead ropes. I mean, and if you'd come up and said, "Hey Ty, try this. I think this is really good." I'm not afraid to try. I'll try it all because I'm always looking for a better rope. And that's part of me, growing up in the buckaroo culture. We're always talking about rope. We're always roping something, talking about rope. And so some guy will say, "Well, I tried this, I tried that." Well, we're up to listen to it for sure. But a good lead rope makes a difference. A good feel on that lead rope makes a difference on how they operate. Like you could go to any tack store and get those nylon, I think they're nylon, yeah, nylon lead ropes, and man, they're the worst.
The braided kind of stuff that'll burn your hand. Yeah.
It'll burn your hand or it burns itself together. I mean, I guess if you have nothing, you just need to tie them up. Okay, whatever. But, I can't get any work done with that thing. For sure. And I can go down rabbit hole of ropes, Daniel, when it comes to roping ropes, lariats. I mean, oh boy, we can talk about the lengths and all the sizes and everything. And you get hanging out with a bunch of buckaroos and man, they're talking about, well, if you're going to do this shot, use this rope. If you're going to do that shot, use this rope. And it can get way too serious.
Yeah. A 3/8 scant and a 3/8 full. Well, I mean, they're both 3/8.
Yeah.
What the heck
Yes.
can be the difference there? I wasn't talking about that kind of rope. That's a whole
Oh
different,
yeah.
much
Oh yeah.
larger topic. But yeah,
Oh boy.
uh,
Yeah, you could go down quite the rabbit hole there, man. For sure.
Cold showers or cold food forever? Which would you pick? And I feel like we need to give a shout out here to Pedro for picking both. But which would you
Yeah,
pick, Ty?
yeah. El Pedro has to have both all the time. No, cold showers. I take a cold shower usually about 5 days a week. Anyways, so I'm already used to that, and I like good food. So warm food. So, yeah, I'm gonna go with cold showers. That's kind of an easy one for me.
I'm right there with you. I've been doing the cold shower thing for years.
Yeah.
Are your hands or your legs better? So
Yeah,
this is
probably.
in result. This is referring to as a horseman riding, not like whether you'd be a hand model versus a leg model or something like that. You know.
Yeah, that's a different subject there. Uh, I probably better with my hands, just, more thought to your hands, I guess. Trying to pay more attention to my legs all the time. That's just one of those things, like adjusting the feel, adjusting the pressure of using your legs and when and where, the timing and the how. That just costs me more brain power than my hands do at this point in my riding career. So yeah, I'd say I'm better with my hands today, but I'm trying to catch up with my legs.
Left lead or right lead?
Man, I can get that left lead all the time. I must be doing something. I must be getting something right on that left lead, because the right seems to be the one I always work at all the time. It's more challenging for me. So I have to be way more conscious to correctly, when I'm working with them babies and the youngsters, to correctly set them up for that and execute that. Whereas the left just happens. I'm like, I don't know. Whatever I'm doing over there seems to work. I just got to figure out what that is. So that's kind of a constant for me.
Back to awareness, right? Yeah.
Awareness. Yeah. It's like, what am I doing? How come it's so easy over here, but it's not over there? What am I doing? It's extreme ownership. It's on me. It's clearly something I'm doing, whether how I'm leaning or whatever. Whatever it is. Um, and there's something interesting. The one thing that I have become aware of is that uh, I was in a pretty good wreck. I had a horse flip over on me, and I busted up my left femur really bad, and I got kicked in the head and stuff. And and at that point, I didn't use it for like 6 months. So my left leg was as skinny as like my forearm, and my right leg was like, boom, it was a big boy. It was thick, right? And so I often think, well, it's because of that, because I get back, I can, I'm a little bit better at using that right leg, to help drive that hip over. Is it because I'm probably more prone to now lean on my right seat bone? What am I doing? But there's something going on there, Daniel, that I'm trying to figure that out myself. And it's not like I can't, it's not like I'm having problems with the right lead. It's just that left, like you asked, the left lead just comes so dang easy for me. Whereas the right, I got to be a little bit more thoughtful.
So my follow-up question there, you kind of did address it with the injury, but are you right or left legged? So like if I threw a soccer ball in the grass and said kick that as hard and as far as you can, which foot would you kick that with?
It'd be my right typically, but for a while there, it changed up because I was
Okay.
I was heavy on my right for so long. And after my injury, I realized that, oh my gosh, what are you doing now? Because I think after that injury, had you done that to me, I probably would have stood on my right and kicked with my left. Probably.
Okay.
Just out of the habit of being on that right for so long, just so sticky over there.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I don't know. I'd probably want to kick with my right now. I could send it sailing with my right leg. My left leg still be like, it'd still be weak, and go in the wrong direction probably.
It's kind of
Yeah.
interesting. Like if you thought about here's a bunch of animals, in considering humans as animals too, and all of them are built more or less symmetrically. And so why would there be a favoritism of a lead or a hand or whatever. Like it doesn't really make sense to me why that pattern would have ever shown up. And yet it seems to pretty consistently. I don't know if you do this, but like I watch dogs and cats too, and what leads they're on and so forth. And there seem to be a lot of preferences. I actually see dogs crossfiring
Oh
quite a
yeah.
bit, and it doesn't seem to affect them at all for whatever reason. But like I've had dogs I was training, and I was paying attention, really aware, and they would have a preference for right or left too. And I've kind of puzzled over that. Like, why does that exist consistently over all of these animals when they're built symmetrically? There's no particular reason why there should be a preference, and yet a preference continues to show up. So good luck going to sleep
Mm.
tonight is all I
Yeah.
have to say about that. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. I've
what's
go ahead, bud.
what's the best smell in the barn?
Mm. I like wood shavings, but actually my favorite smell, you might think it's, and I don't know if it doesn't count quite for the barn, but I just love the smell of a indoor arena dirt. And I don't know what it is, but just like and you don't smell it as much on that in an outdoor arena, but this whatever when they come in, they rake a nice indoor arena. That smell of
Hmm.
that dirt, I don't know what it is. I just like it. So not quite a barn smell, I suppose, but
No,
it's
it's associated.
inside.
I get it. I'm not sure what that smell is. Um, I'll have to pay a little bit more attention to.
It's funny how smells trigger you though. Like
Hmm.
j the smell of a tack room, like a old tack room. I remember. So growing up, my dad would take me every summer. We'd go down to where I live now. Where I live now, a family member had a big ranch down there, one of the biggest horse ranches in Utah, and that's all since gone and passed now. But I remember going into his name was Bud Mitchell, and going into Uncle Bud's tack shed, and the smell of that old leather, and them old bridles, and whether it's the actual smell that I like or the nostalgia of the memories attached to the smell, just seeing all them cool old bridle bits and the rawhide reins and you know, I mean, he was a bridleman and it was cool to see all that stuff and smell that too. So I guess in the barn I might pick that one too, Daniel, because that's pretty dang neat, smell of a good tack room.
Hmm. That one I definitely identify with. Although the indoor arena dirt smell thing, I'll be a little more aware and pay attention and see if that kind of
Yeah.
triggers for me and everything. Yeah.
It's not going to be, it's not the smell like when you go to those expos, that's not it. That's not what I'm talking about. It's like at somebody's, their indoor arena. It's a full-time arena, working all the
Hmm.
time. I don't know what it is. I like that though. Yeah.
Sweet, salty, or spicy?
I want all of them. I mean, I might rotate. I might rotate. Give me some chips and salsa, and then how about some chocolate with a little salt on it? Like
There you go.
we'll
Yeah.
just we'll just rotate. We'll just rotate around. Why
That's
not?
and a breakfast pizza. Yeah, that sounds like a
Yeah,
meal right there. Absolutely. Man,
yeah, yeah. There you
I
go.
have you ever been to England?
No, I've not.
We made a trip there for a deal with Jim Masterson last year, and you get into these little towns and all this stuff. You're away from home, so there's a gas station down the road. And you ever heard of a sausage roll? That's like one of England's classic deals. Man, I
Pretty
could
good,
eat a
huh?
sausage roll for breakfast every day for the rest of my life. Yeah, that is those things that they may not be known for their food, but they figured that one out. Let me tell you, they hit a home run on that. And then our final question for you: what is your favorite dinosaur or deep sea creature?
Oh, I'm gonna have to go with the Utah Raptor. It's pretty famous. That at least in my state, the Utah Raptor's kind of a. I mean, if you live there, everybody knows about it. So they've found thousands of them there in Utah. So I'm not too much of a dinosaur deep sea creature guy, but I do think those Utah raptors are pretty cool.
Okay. Well, cool. Well, let me do a quick tabulation of your score here. You're not going to believe this, Ty, but I've got you at 5,718 points, which makes you our high scorer of all time for this particular game. Um, and that entitles you to either an awkward silence or a genuine compliment, your choice.
Well, you remember our awkward silence joke at Equifest, right?
Refresh my memory. I don't. I'm sure I will
we
as soon as you say it.
we were when we were all hanging out together up on the stage, and I was telling of the differences between remember the donkey and the horse in math class. Do you remember that joke? I'll tell it. I'll
No.
tell it for your audience here. So, because everybody wants to know, everybody asks me the difference. What's the difference between mules and horses? And I say, well, let me tell you about the donkey and the horse. The difference between there, because the mule just falls somewhere in between. I say, okay, so you got the horse and you got the donkey in math class, right? They're both in there, the horse and the donkey. And the teacher says, okay, class, what's two plus two? And the horse shoots his hoof up. Me, pick me, pick me, pick me, pick me, pick me. Right? He says, okay, horse, what's the answer? Five. And teacher says, sorry, that's you're close. That's not it. And so, anybody else? Two plus two, and horse shoots his hoof back up. Me, pick me, pick me. Three. No, not quite it. Well, this goes on. The horse just raising his hoof every second, trying to give an answer. The horse is trying so hard for that teacher. And finally, the teacher says, "Hey, donkey, you've been pretty quiet over there. Donkey, what's two plus two?" And the donkey just sits there for a good long while. And the teacher says, "Donkey, did you hear me? What's two plus two?" Nothing. And pretty soon, donkey goes, four. That's correct. But that's so when people ask the difference, they say you got to think about that. The donkey is going to take 7 to 10 business days to give you the answer, but they'll get to the answer. You just got to hang in there. The horse, you'll probably get there quicker, but you might have to go through a few extra guesses on the way and give them some hints. But the mule falls somewhere in between there. But anyways, that was the awkward silence joke there. So, but I'm gonna make you give me a compliment because I think you was thinking I'd tell you the awkward silence. So I want a genuine compliment from Daniel. I want to know what this is gonna be.
Absolutely. But let me, before I give you the genuine compliment, I want to tell you that exact experience, what you're talking about. So let me flesh this out for y'all. We're at Kansas Equifest, and they decided to put all of us up, the headliners, on a coffee talk kind of thing. So we're on a stage, we're mic'd up, we're there to do a Q&A, and this was a little bit of a change in the agenda, and nobody showed up. Like, we're on a stage, we've got this room, chairs, and all this in front of us. There is no audience whatsoever. Not a single person is in here to listen to our coffee talk. And so we cut up and had a good time. Like, those people missed maybe the funnest interview they were ever going to get to witness, because we had a blast just cutting up there with one another. And I thought that was the most hilarious and probably fun interview kind of thing I've ever been involved in, just for the whole deal of, like,
Oh,
here's
yeah.
an impromptu thing of the people you're all here to see, and not a single person showed up for it. I thought that was just
Yeah,
fantastic.
yeah. That was
So,
fun. I enjoyed that. That was a good time, and I've never done that at any of the expos I've done before over all the years. They've never put it together, but I think that was a good idea. For the expo, they should do those roundtables more often. Um, because also a good way, it was a good way to get to know all you guys too. I feel like,
yeah,
maybe we would have crossed paths and said hi, hello, and waved, but maybe we wouldn't have all got to know each other better. So I
mhm,
like that. That was a good time.
yeah, absolutely. Well, time my compliment for you. Um, one of the things I really have to say is that I love your sense of humor. I think we're pretty on the same page. You're a very witty and quick-witted sort of a guy, and um, I can play with you. So you keep up and you're right there, and we played off of each other very, very well. I also think as a clinician, you're very articulate, straightforward, easy to understand, like you have all of the qualities that a person would want to have. I've seen you be very patient with people. One of your presentations I sat in on, and when it got a little quiet, I was throwing you some questions to keep the thing going. And I know on the clinician side, it can get a little old answering the same question for the 8,000th time and everything. And you hung with that very patiently. You gave it the same consideration and emphasis and attention that you probably gave those questions the third time that you answered them, rather than the 8,000th and all of that stuff. Um, and I also appreciate you have a good sense of humor about the niche that you occupy, the mule side of it and all of that thing. You're doing your own deal, listening to the beat of your own drum and everything, and being successful at it. And so I'm glad that you're out there, and I'm glad that our paths crossed and we got to know one another.
I appreciate that, Daniel. I was at a clinic one time talking about answering questions and trying to make it easy for people to learn. I was at a clinic one time and this pair of ladies comes up and they're pals. One of the ladies, it's her first time coming to the clinic, and she's nervous. You've seen it. The new students they're nervous. They don't know what to expect, and they're a little worried. And she comes up. She's telling me about her mule, what's going on, and everything. And the other lady that had been to many of my clinics, she says, "Hey, don't worry. You're gonna have so much fun." And the lady's like, "Well, sometimes I just have a hard time understanding the teacher, understanding the clinician." She says, "No, no, no, don't worry. Ty really dumbs things down, and you'll be just fine." And I thought, well, I'm just gonna go ahead and take that as a compliment. He really dumbs things down.
I,
So I'll go with it.
you I know what you mean, but like I've seen other things where I'm watching, dressage kind of typifies this for me. You're watching a really high level horseman talk, and I am absolutely convinced that 90% of the people in the audience do not actually know what they're talking about. And
Yeah.
they just keep blowing through, and nobody stops and says, "Hey, you keep using this word. What does that mean?" Right. And so, because nobody will stop them and ask, everybody misses out on what they were trying to say, because the simple terms never were defined and everybody got on the same page. I think that's incredibly important to do. And I think you do a good job of it. I don't consider that dumbing it down at all. You're just making sure that everybody can actually understand the
Yeah.
message, because you know if you're only catching every third word, obviously what you get out of it's not going to be very substantial. So
Yeah. I always tell my students at the beginning of every clinic that, hey, you can ask me why to anything I do, and I promise you I will not take offense to it. Because yeah, if you ask some people why, they kind of people can get offended, like you're questioning them, uh, or their knowledge or their understanding or whatever. But I tell my students, hey, no, really, please ask me why. Because I know that if you know why I'm telling you this thing or why I'm sharing this with you, the lesson will stick better. And I am the why guy, man. Like I drove my dad nuts, I'm sure, as a child because I asked why to everything. But it wasn't out of a snotty, rude why. No, it was a legitimate, hey, why? And if I signed up for your bit master class and took a course from you, it'd be the same thing for you. Hey, Daniel, so why do we use this and not this? And how come this rein position works and why doesn't this work? And that's how I learn. And I know not everybody learns that way, but it does leave an open door for them. It leaves an invitation that, hey, you know what? If you don't understand this, that's okay. You can ask why. And then the other thing I tell my students too, and I think this is important, or at least it gives me a little out, is I say, hey, you know what? it's okay if you don't understand everything. Like, you don't need to feel dumb because you don't understand everything that we're talking about here. That's all right. And actually, that's normal. You're going to come to these clinics, and yeah, we're doing a 3 day clinic or whatever. Um, but even in 3 days, I'd be surprised if you take home more than more than one or two things that you really glean out of this. If you can get one or two good pieces of information and take that back and be able to apply it and understand why we apply it and how to apply it, I call that a win. I'd rather you take one or two things back than try to take, 10 or 20 of them. There's a big difference. So, and the why question always opens that door for people's learning. So I think that's very important to ask why all the time.
Yeah. It's the difference between memorizing 2 + 2 = 4 and understanding why 2 + 2 = 4, so you can come up with your own answer on it anytime you need.
Exactly.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
was also the kid that drove all the adults crazy, asking why all the time. I have
Yeah.
an uncle that to this day picks on me about that. So
Yeah. But it's a great way to learn though. And nowadays I might not necessarily ask why verbally to everything, but I am thinking why. And even when I by myself and I'm working on something and it comes through for me, why did that just work? So why did that mule or that horse cross the water so easily there? But why did, earlier in the day, why did they not want to cross over there? What's the difference? Is it me? Is it something the way I asked? Was it the situation? Was it the environment? Timing? What was it? I want to know why. And that helps me learn and helps me be better all the time. For me, currently, the big whys come up. It's branding season. I've got invited to a couple brandings. I only been able to make one this spring. But man, Daniel, when you're roping in the branding pen, dude, you got to ask why. Like, what? Why did I just catch there, and why am I missing now? Why am I missing 5 times in a row? Why am I catching 5 times in a row? Like, why? What am I doing? And asking why when you're roping, making those adjustments makes a huge difference. And you go, oh, yeah, get your tip out there, get your angle right there. Oh, pick your elbow up. Oh, well, let go here instead of there. And I think why is a magical question. I think everybody should get good at asking why.
I really love something you said earlier, and I think it was when we were talking about the different types of ropes and stuff. But you mentioned how you were always willing to experiment and change up and try this other thing or whatever. And I've been that way too. And I kind of do find there are some people in our business, if you ask them why, they may not really have much of an answer, and often it's because that's how I was taught to do this or whatever. But
Yeah.
if you ask me why, usually it's because, well, I put that bit on 30 different horses in different stages of training with different personalities. And this was kind of the outcome of that experiment. And so this is why I do it this way now, because it did work in this kind of horse, didn't work with this kind of horse. And so I experimented to get data, and now there's an answer as to why, rather than someone told me and I believed them, but I don't really fully understand what the mechanism here is. I just trusted them, and maybe there's better ways, maybe there's worse
Yeah.
ways, but this seems to be good enough. That's not really the standard I'm looking for
Yeah.
with what I'm doing. Um, well, so we're out of the icebreakers now. Usually, my first traditional question is, would you kind of just give us the 30,000-foot view of what it is that you do in the horse or the mule world?
Yeah. I just try to help. I mean, I want people to get along better. Um, the mule world, Daniel, I feel like is a good 30, 40 years behind the horse world. There's so many great things in the horse world as far as education goes, things that we know, things that we should be doing. Earlier, when you asked me, like, hey, what's one thing you'd like to be better at? And I mentioned equine dentistry, right? You, I still meet so many people. I say, they go to pick up on a rein, on their mule, and their mule flicks its head to the outside. And whenever I see that little flick, and you probably know what I'm talking about, you've seen it with a horse, this little nose to the outside. It's not that they're bracing. It's not that they're like resisting the signal. It's usually because they got some sharp points on that outside, and you just pressed against them with that, and they're responding in that way, right? And and so I'll take a look in their mule's mouth just out of curiosity, maybe after class or something. I'll say, "Hey, when's the last time you had these teeth floated?" And they're like, "What? What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Well, you know, you'll see a equine dentist or sometimes just even a vet, and they can file these sharp points down. Can you see those sharp points? Can you feel them? I'll have them stick their fingers back in there, you know, or whatever. And they're like, can you feel that? And like, yeah. I'm like, well, those need to be filed down. And a lot of them just don't know. And that's just a brief example of what I'm trying to do is just bring awareness to all the things in mulemanship and horsemanship, you know, and lifemanship, right? Like, hey, yeah, I know you're here to take a class and you're trying to learn how to, you know, seat, leg, and rein positions. I get it, but the reason why some of these things aren't working out might be because of another reason there. It might be because you know they're something's going on there, and you know I'm just trying to help people out. That's what I do. With people come to the clinics, and the majority of my students are they ride trails, and they're just into enjoying their time with their mules and their horses. I don't get a lot of performance folks. Um, Depending on where I am in the country, I do draw a lot of ranch and cow work type background, and we do some cow working classes and things like that, and we'll rope and we'll play. And so I help people like that too. But yeah, overall, if I had to just sum it up really quick, is just helping people get along and see things from the mule's point of view and the horse's point of view. Um, that's kind of my main gig, I guess.
So what we just talked about defining simple terms. So I'm going to do a bunch of that with you right now just to make sure
Let's do it.
everybody's on the same page. For those who may not know, what exactly is a mule?
Mule is a cross between a donkey and a horse. They're hybrid. They got a odd number of chromosomes. They can't reproduce. There's some freak deals out there that they can reproduce. You know, they make the headlines, but very rarely. And but yeah, you get that cross between a good horse and a good donkey, and you get this hybrid. And they're cool. Mules are cool. They're tough. You know, people that like to ride in the mountains, people that like to ride rough country, mules really shine there. Um, you can do everything. I mean, pretty much every event that folks are doing out there on horses, there's somebody doing it on mules too. There's not nearly the numbers of mules. There's only a fraction of mules compared to the horse population in the world. But they're out there doing the things, you know, ranching with them, trail riding, packing, uh, shoot, go barrel race, you know. Just last week, there's a huge event, the biggest event in our country in the United States. I know you got listeners all over the world, but the biggest in the United States is called Bishop Mule Days, and they have everything there. You can go enter driving competitions. You can go do a halter class. You can go do a packing class, cow working, go cut, go take a cow down the fence. You can go team rope off of them, pole bending, trail. I mean, all they do every event. It goes for a week long, and it's the biggest one in the United States. It's amazing. So, anyways, people often ask me about, you know, they hear different things about mules. There's a lot of funny myths out there. So if you got any mythbusters you want, we can talk about them. But the mules come in all sizes, shapes, and colors. You can get little tiny mini mules that are size of a size of a German Shepherd dog, or you can get big old draft mules, you know, out of Belgians and Percherons, and they're huge, and they're pulling heavy duty wagons, heavy duty driving stuff. You know, you get back east toward the Amish country, and there's still a lot of them that are using them for farm work still every day. But Yeah, I kind of play around mostly with the quarter horse mules. That's mostly what we have is quarter horse mules. And we trail ride, we ranch, pack. That's kind of my main gigs. That's what I do.
So so kind of getting back to the genetic part of what a mule is, like what would be the difference between a mule and a hinny, for both genetically and practically?
Genetically, there's not much difference. And I guess you'd have to get pretty scientific and get somebody out here taking measurements on things to find out those differences. But I think though even genetically it'd be weird because of the hybrid stuff. You get all kinds of results due to the hybrid. But really the only difference is who's on top, who's on bottom. A mule is when the donkey I is the stud. We call him a jack. Um, and they're out of a mare. That's a mule. A hinny is when they're out of a female donkey, which is called a jenny, and they're by a stud horse. So that's the difference. And you wouldn't the average person, well, even me, anybody wouldn't be able to recognize the differences between a hinny and a mule unless you knew that they were born that way. You can't tell. There's no differences to see, no visual differences to see. Um, the only thing that I've ever been able to kind of get, and this is pretty general, Daniel, this ain't science. This is just, this is just observations, is this. Okay. And I've joked about this, that the mule's Achilles heel in life is they love horses. Okay. Mules are herd bound to horses. They love their mommies. Every mule is a mama's boy or mama's girl, for sure. They love their mothers. Well, the Hennies love donkeys. They really love the donkeys. Like you see a mule and it is drawn to that donkey, or a Henny is drawn to that donkey, and that's like, well, that's probably a Henny. Um, but that's general because I've had plenty of the opposites do the same thing. But I've seen that. I've seen that. That's a general observation. Um, and so that's kind of interesting to me that they're drawn to their mothers.
So would you have any preference? Like let's say that I want to go into the mule business or the henny business and start just breeding them and putting mules and hennies out into the world. Is it Would it be preferential for me to get a herd of mares and one jack, or would it be easier for me to get a nice stallion and go find a bunch of jennies and produce hennies, or
I
no
think
real?
it'd be easier for you to raise mules. Just because from a business standpoint, there's not a lot of folks that, uh, like if you was to hire out a stud, you're trying to pay for breed fees. Not a lot of guys with good studs that want to breed a bunch of donkeys. You pull up to that barn with all your donkeys and say, "All right, I need you guys to breed these donkeys for me," and they're looking at you like, "There's no way," right? Because the studs, they got all their fame, right? The people they get famous and they got all this pedigree to live by. But the guy with the donkey, he's like, "Oh, well, we'll take anything." I just we'll take it all. So, yeah, I would say that it's going to be easier to find some mares and breed to a jack than the opposite.
So how do you feel about the evaluation process? Well, like any old jack, I found a jack at the sale barn and now I'm gonna make mules with him, or is there a pedigree in existence where we can have some kind of standards or accolades or something that says this one's preferential to that one and so forth, or how does that go?
There there's getting to be a pedigree with the donkeys. For the longest time, it was just like you said. People find any old jack, any old mare. Mules, it mostly happened after World War II. After World War II, you know, the Army, our U.S. military wasn't using mules nearly as much as they did prior to World War II, right? Prior to World War II, you're spending more for a mule than you're spending for a horse going into the military, right? The value because they're work animals, right? And they're going to get more work out of that mule than they would their horses. Higher survival rate, less maintenance, less care. So the military really used them. But after World War II comes around, now mules we're still doing some farm work with them, not nearly as much as we used to. Um, at that point after World War II, it's really not super, you don't see a lot of the trail riding and the pleasure riding come along just quite yet. That wasn't even until later in the 60s, right? And 70s, people like, oh, let's go trail ride, right? Um, so there's a big lull of time. And my great grandpa told stories about, yeah, they'd, they did need a mule to go work a little bit. And so they got a mare that's kind of in their eyes no good, right? It's got weird conformation or it's kind of tough to deal with, and like, hey, well, let's get a mule. And they take anything. And that was through the majority of the 1900s. It was that way. And it wasn't until I'd say the 90s that things really started to change and into the early 2000s, which is really recent history, right? And people realize, well, it's the baby boomer generation. Baby boomers want to go, they wanted to go trail ride. They wanted to go use these for pleasure. They're retired and they had some money and they want some good animals to go trail ride and go do these things with. And so I kind of think it was them that made those changes in the breeding. Nowadays, yeah, you can buy a donkey and it does have some pedigree and they'll tell you some bloodlines. There's a few jacks that kind of became famous. One of them was called Texas Scooter, and came famous there. And so nowadays, if you go buy a donkey and you'll ask about some heritage, some bloodlines there, that's probably going to come up if they want a little claim to fame, right? The choice of mares is making a big difference too nowadays. People are seeing some value in raising some good mules, raising some well-bred mules, and they're seeing that it makes a difference. The mare. Uh, this is just me, Daniel. This you might ask the next person this, and they might give you a complete different answer. But for me, the mare is what is the most important, I think, because that Jack, he's just a sperm donor. That's all. That mare raised that mule or that foal, whatever, right? And so you know, back in the day, like I said, they'd pick their worst mares to breed to them jacks. Well, no wonder all the mules are hard to catch and tough and fighting and all kinds of things because they picking the mares that way. So every mule needs a mother, needs a good mom. And I think the disposition that your mule's going to get is going to come from that mare primarily, I think. So I think that's very important to have a good mare.
We have a mare that we use as a brood mare, and she's a half Belgian, half thoroughbred big mare. And I have really flirted with the idea of breeding her to a jack and getting a nice big mule for myself to ride. But that's kind of been the hard part, is finding a mammoth jack in this part of the world that I could practice. Like I don't want to be 20 grand and driving to Minnesota. And, it's not
Yeah.
easy around here to find the daddy on that
Yeah.
for that deal. But anyway, I would be open to that.
Well,
I
now
think
and now the mule industry, in the breeding industry for the mules is changing. That they're catching up a little bit to all the uh, shipping frozen semen and cooled semen and all kinds of different things that's happening now with the jacks. That's where with the horses they've been doing it forever, and now people are like, well, we got a good jack, we can do that, and so that's kind of fun. That's kind of fun that things are getting better for the mule world that way.
well, since we're kind of on the genetic side of this right now, why don't we jump back to the bay and sorrel deal? And I don't I don't have a ton of experience with donkeys. I've got a donkey. We've got a bunch of donkeys in pasture. The vast majority of the donkeys that I see are kind of the standard donkeys, so they're like, waist high. They're too small if you would want to produce a mule, but they're all that gray color. When I have looked at the mammoth jack thing, sometimes I see, I don't even know what the proper name for it is, but they're much darker um color. So please
Yeah.
tell me what the colors would properly be called, and then how does that play with the horse genetics for us to get a sorrel mule or a bay mule or an Appaloosa mule or whatever we may wind up with on
Yeah.
the other end.
Well, the color's tough, and I'm not an expert to talk about the color that well because of the hybrid. Like it's such a gamble, Daniel. The colors are such a gamble, but some of these guys got it figured out. But I think they have it more figured out on the mare side of things than the jack side of things. But yeah, a lot of the mammoth size, and it's funny because depending on who you talk to in the U.S., mammoth could mean a size which is technically 14 hands or taller would be a mammoth. And then other people just call the American donkey just because the American donkey is kind of a mutt of all these donkey breeds. They just call it a American mammoth donkey. So a mammoth could be an actual our mixed American breed, kind of like the mammoth. The American mammoth could be like the quarter horse of the donkey world. Okay, this is like, well, it's just really a bunch of mixes of things that we call this. Um, but yeah, they can come in all kinds of colors too. I mean, all kinds of colors. I've seen them kind of painted up. I've seen them pinnoed.
Mhm.
I've seen them a lot of the ones that are a little bit more on the Catalonian side kind of end up being have that little red tint to them. And there's a lot of red mules out there. There's a lot of red sorrels out there. I think that's a very dominant color. A lot of bays. So pretty much the same dominances and colors that you see in just the general horse population, you're going to see that in the mule world too. So it's kind of a gamble there. You can get there's some donkeys that are just jet black, just black as night, and I've seen some that are white, just as white as snow, and everything in between. So yeah, but a lot of people don't understand that the hybrid part of that equation is just so wild. You just it's just gambling. It's just gambling so much because yeah, who knows? I've seen them. They're like, oh yeah, it's got to be. It's gonna come out of buckskin dun. It's got to come out of buckskin dun. They bred this Palomino mare to this donkey, and they're like, oh, it's got to be a buckskin dun, and yeah, who knows? It comes
Mhm.
out white. Like who knows? Who knows?
So, do you see very many people that are riding donkeys? Like if I'm going to in the horse world, if I want to have a horse that I deem well enough to keep a stallion, I want to have ridden him and experienced him and felt, and the trainability was where I wanted it. The conformation was where, like, there are standards that he met at every part, and then the same with the mare. And now I have a pretty good idea of what I'm getting. So, like, how do we prove up a donkey? Or people riding them? Have you ridden a bunch of donkeys? And I
Yeah.
guess that
Yeah, they're definitely getting to be more popular, and it's because of the size. People are breeding bigger donkeys. Like you was talking about, you see so many of the standards. There's standards, there's large standards, and there's mammoths. And I can't remember off the top of my head what dictates that exact size of a standard or large standard. But like you're talking about, the standards are too short. You're not going to see people riding those. The large standards, yes, and the mammoth, yes. There's regions where donkeys are much more popular. When I get out on the East Coast, a lot of riding donkeys out there. Lots of riding
really.
donkeys. A lot of riding donkeys up in the Northeast. Basically just take Ohio, Pennsylvania, and on up to the Northeast. A lot of riding donkeys up there. You get out in Utah, man, you're not going to see a riding donkey in Utah unless you come to my house. Like we got one little donkey right now. She's little, she's a baby, she's gonna be big, but you're just not gonna see him in Utah. No way. You're not gonna see him in Nevada. You're not gonna see him in Idaho much. Um, but there are people that are riding donkeys. Now, one of the things that's behind in the breeding industry on the mules is with the horses, you got all these studs that are proven. You got studs that are winning things. People taking these studs out and going and doing stuff with the studs, and then they turn them into to a breeding stud. Before, uh, it was just like, well, it's a stud, so breed it. Well, now there people are proving them, and that's really cool. In the world of donkeys, not a lot of people are riding jacks. I mean, it'd take me a minute, but I probably only think of three or four or five people that are riding their jacks, actually proving their jacks and using them. And that's not much considering the whole country of them, right? Um, so that's a big difference too, is yeah, yeah, we got this jack and you're kind of just breeding for blood, not really blood and the disposition of the jack. That's all that people get to see most of the time. But there are a few people. I had a guest on my show named Candace Schauger. She's from Ohio actually, and we were talking about this, and you know, she's riding these jacks. She's using them. She's proving them. And that's really cool. There's a lady in Ohio in Oklahoma doing the same thing. She's using her jacks and proving them, and that's cool because then you can actually see some trainability out of these things. Because although I believe the mare is the most important for raising that mule. I mean, well, you got to look at the trainability of the on the donkey side of things. That really makes a difference. So, yeah, maybe someday it'll change, Daniel, and there'll be more people, doing a little bit better job at this stuff. And I do think that all these we mentioned prices earlier a little bit. I think the driving up of the money will make people take things a little bit more seriously. They're like,
Mhm.
oh, well, we could raise something actually make some money at this a little bit. It's going to change the industry a little, I think. That'll be interesting to see what happens. I don't know.
So something you just said surprised me quite a bit. Like when I think of mules, I think of the West, these days anyway. So you're saying there's more donkeys on the East Coast and
Yeah.
and kind of the Midwest. I guess my question is, you're talking Ohio, Pennsylvania. So is that Amish influence that you think
May,
that keeps the donkeys
maybe.
relevant there, or?
Yeah, maybe. Maybe it's the Amish raising them. But general populations of mules too. There's way more mules. Let's just call it Missouri East. From Missouri to the east, there's way more mules than there are in the West
Hmm.
nowadays. Now, I think that might have been different historically,
Yeah, that
because you go back to in the West, like in Utah, back to the pioneer days and back to the mining days. Oh man, there's piles of mules, you know. In the West, a lot of the cavalry, when you picture the U.S. cavalry, you're picturing all these awesome thoroughbred horses that are just tough as nails. Well, come to Arizona and Utah, and you see a cavalry outfitted with mules. That's that's what they're using. That's what they contracted out here. That's what held up. And so, but that's historic. So it's changed now.
Yeah, I mean that does surprise me. Like when you think of what would be the characteristic advantage of mules, I'm thinking if the mule's going to be advantageous, it's in rough, steep, rocky, gnarly kind of country, which I don't think of in the East. For those that have been
Yeah.
in that may not have been in the Appalachians and the Rockies, those are not the same kind of mountains. Like the Appalachians are very tame compared to the country
Yeah.
you've got out there in Utah and everything. So it really seems like your country is where the mule is way more practical and you're gonna get all of the advantages out of them. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that people do practical things though. So however it
Yeah.
goes. But
And I think history changes those things. Um, Nowadays, just take the inner Mountain West. And when I say inner Mountain West, I mean Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and Mexico. Think of the Rocky Mountain spine. So I live in the inner Mountain West, right? And yeah, mules shine here. That's what they're for. I think that was what God made a mule for right there, was to ride in that country. But but I think what is happening now is in the East, there's a lot more people that are riding for pleasure. They're trail riders. They're going to go out. They're going out on Saturday for their weekly ride. They're going to go enjoy some time with some friends, go out and go for a ride, eat lunch, and have a picnic, right? And yeah, they like the mules. They're gentle. They're easy. Pretty easy to get along with. It's not that big of a deal, right? And so I think a lot of people are liking them there, even though maybe, yeah, it's not that I don't think they necessarily need a mule for applying it to the terrain. They just like to have the ease of that trail riding mule, they're just getting into them. In the West, definitely still ranching culture. And, come to Utah, it's quarter horse country all the way. That's what, if you look at all the equine in Utah, for example, you're going to see a huge, massive number of quarter horses, and mules are way down little. I mean, hardly making if it was a pie graph, they'd hardly make a slice. It would hardly be on there. You get up further than I'm up in Washington right now. I'm in eastern Washington, and you get in this country, you get to the panhandle of Idaho, up northern Idaho, and you get into northwestern Montana. Yeah, we're back in mule country up here. My clinics up here, they're always full. Lots of mule people, lots of packers. Up in this country, the Forest Service still primarily uses mules to maintain trails. So tons of mules up here. But I still would argue that it's still nothing compared to the East. I mean, there's just so many more people in the East, so many more mules in the East. So a lot of guys that are in the business of selling out here, Daniel, they'll when they're selling mules and stuff, they go to the mule sales back east to buy. They're going to Missouri to the mule sales there, Oklahoma. They got mule sales there. They're going to Tennessee for those sales, and then they come out west and they use them, train them, tune them up or whatever, and resell out here. So I see a lot of that for sure.
So we've touched on it a little bit, but I'm going to throw the big question in your lap here. What would you say are the main differences between a horse and a mule?
Yeah. Well, we give the math example, right? And I'll tell you one of my favorite quotes, Daniel. It's a Tom Dorrance quote, but he said, you have to treat the mule the way you should treat the horse. Now, I've thought about that for a long time. I heard that a long time ago. I heard that when I was just a little kid, and it didn't mean anything to me then. I'm like, well, whatever. But the more I learned, the more it means something to me in all the ways of horsemanship and mulemanship. You've heard the principle for sure, and I'm sure all your listeners have heard this a million times. Make the right thing easy, wrong thing difficult. Okay? And I feel like the convenient thing for most of us is to make the wrong thing difficult. Like if we give you a situation, give the average person a situation, say, all right, right thing easy, wrong thing difficult. What are you going to do? They could probably give us a long list of ways to make the wrong thing difficult. Like, well, I'm going to go over here. I'm going to work that. I'm going to do this and this and this. Then I say, yeah, but how are you going to make the right thing easy? And emphasis on how are you going to make the right thing easier? How are you going to make it easier? And that's where people get stumped. So there's situations that let's stick to some obstacles. So these are easy examples for everybody to understand. We're coming up to some water, okay? We got a horse there, we got a mule there, okay? And we're trying to get across this water. The horse nor the mule want to cross the water, okay? I'm not saying you should do this, and I'm not telling any of your listeners to do this, but I'm saying, unfortunately, you could. We could get up to that water, and we could whip and spur and kick, and we could scare the horse enough to jump across that water. Yeah, they might not walk across. It might not be pretty, but we could probably put enough pressure that they'd go across, right? Again, I'm not telling anybody to do it that way, but I'm saying, unfortunately, you probably could. And you could say, well, technically, yeah, we made the right thing easy, wrong thing difficult. I wanted them on this side of the water, so as soon as they jumped over, I quit kicking. And back over there when they didn't want to cross, well, I was kicking. All right, I see it, and I guess technically that is the dictionary definition of the principle. I get it. But with the mule, you take them up to that water, and you're kicking and spurring like that. You are solidifying in the mule's mind that indeed this water sucks. And remember the mules, it was good back on the trail just 20 feet ago, back there on that trail. you weren't kicking or spurring at all, were you? Life was life was totally cool back there 20 foot. So the funny thing with a mule, you get putting all that pressure up at that obstacle. They say, whoa, 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 whoa. Yeah, this is a bad idea. I'm going to go back to where I think it was pretty dang good. And they'll start to retreat back. And then you go, geez, what the heck is happening? So back to the Tom Dorrance's principle, you have to treat the mule the way you should treat the horse. Instead of me getting it in this big gunfight right there at the water, what I would do, horse or mule or donkey, what I would do is as I'm approaching that water, again back to paying attention and awareness, right? I'm going to notice when I feel that tension begin. Hopefully I'm aware enough to notice this. And let's just pretend I feel the tension at 10 feet away from the water. I feel the hesitation in them. Now it's not enough hesitation. I can still get up to the water probably, but I feel the hesitancy. Well, right there, I'm going to take that awareness. I'm going to notice that little bubble of discomfort. And right there, I'm going to stop, and I might just pause for that moment. I might just sit there and just enjoy just don't forget to enjoy your trail ride too, right? Enjoy nature for a minute. You can pause and take a breath. And sometimes just me pausing like that gives the mule or a horse enough time to let that tension just go away. They're like, okay, I'm good. And they take a breath and they might even lick and chew a little bit. Life is good. And maybe I could urge forward there and they might go across just fine. But if I feel a lot of tension there still, I'm going to go back to where I just was. And then I'm going to engage things. I'm going to go back and I'm just going to work on good stuff. It ain't like I'm getting after them, right? Like I'm not getting after it. I'm just doing stuff. I'm going to go back here. Maybe I side pass a little bit, leg you a little bit. Maybe I stop and back up a little bit. Maybe turn on the haunches, whatever, anything. Just go do something back there. And I'll come back up to that 10-foot mark where I felt the original hesitancy and I'll pause there again. One thing's for sure, I'm not going to push past that 10-foot mark until 10 foot is good. Because what's the point? What's the point of going to 5 foot if 10 foot they're still scared? You know? So I'm going to check off that 10-footer mark. And pretty soon they're like, yeah, 10 foot's good. I love this spot. And then now I can move that whole bubble forward. And I guess, long story longer, I want to get to where by the time I get to the water, they're already good to go. There's no hesitancy. They're already just fine and life is good. I've assured that going forward is going to produce results. Going forward is going to feel good to them. And by the time I get to that water, they're like, oh yeah, this is better. And then it also solidifies that their last memory of being back further on the trail is actually a little bit more work. It's just a little bit. That's all it has to be, is a little bit more work back there. So, whereas originally, if I just got into that gunfight with them at the water, they're saying, you know what, life was sure a lot better back there. And so I'm just trying to change that up. So that's the a little example of some differences is that I could probably urge that horse across. And if I did that enough times, I'd probably get by. I probably would. I'm not saying you should, but I probably could get by. Whereas the mule, if I got to that first fight at that water, the next water is going to be maybe worse. Maybe worse. It might. I don't know. I've had it worse a lot of times. I go, geez, what did I do? And got to look back on the mistakes I made.
So if we kind of looked at that through the lens of like leadership and confidence of the animal, would you say that mules are generally more confident or more insecure than, say, a horse?
I
Or do you
think
think
that
that's
is,
the wrong take?
yeah, I think that's just as general as saying, well, is this horse, what breed of horse is more confident than that breed? You know what I mean? It's so vague. Um, all the differences that you see in horses, you're going to see all those same differences in mules. So that is totally individual, I think. Because I've had some mules that are just so dang confident. I mean, they can just take on the world. I've been in, situations with a bull, with ornery mother cow, and that those mules just like, no, 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 cow, you're not getting to me. You know what I mean? And they will just run that cow off. I've been with other mules, and they're like, peace out. I'm gone. You know what I mean? And they ain't holding up to the cow. With horse, I've had the same experience with my horses too. I've had some horses that are like bulletproof. Nothing's getting past them. They're good to go. And I've had other horses that are just the biggest chickens, and it's hard to build that confidence. So, this all the tendencies that you see in horses, all the mannerism, behaviors, traits that you see in horses can be manifest in mules too, for sure, high or low. Um, they do have their mindset is much more processing. What I mean is they're very thoughtful, and I think that's because they lack the flight ability that the horse has. I think the horse has such a high flight ability. They get scared, well, they can run and they're fast. And on the donkey side of things, the donkeys don't have the flight ability. They can't run that fast. They can run, but they can't run that fast, right? Um, so they have to utilize different skills. And, like the donkeys, you'll see them pause. And I always joke, I already said this on here, but, with a donkey, give them 7 to 10 business days and they'll get back to you, but the point is they really think through things. And the impatient person will call that stubborn. Like, come on, donkey, make a choice. Let's go, right? And we might mistake that for some stubbornness when really it's just over thoughtfulness. They're just like, what is the profession? They're like the insurance adjuster. The risk management, the guy, like if they had a human job, it'd be like the risk analyst, right? That's what a donkey is. Like, oh, what's the risk of this? If we make this choice, they got to weigh out all the options. They're the person with the spreadsheet and the pie graphs making choices. That's the donkey. Whereas the horse, it's kind of like how you asked me if I'm decisive or indecisive. Well, I'm going to make a decision. Oh wait, I might want to change my mind. That's the horse side of
Mhm.
things. So the mule falls somewhere in there where some are more analytical for sure, and they're going to take longer to sort things out, and that can annoy a lot of people for sure. Others can be, for example, if they're out of a pretty reactive mare, a mare that is pretty touchy. That mule is going to be just like the horse, but more so, for sure. If you got a horse that maybe is a little crow hoppy, a mare that's kind of wants to crow hop a little, you're like, that's not that big of a deal. You breed it to a jack, you're going to get a mule that bucks. Like it just things come out more so. Like that the hybrid part brings out the traits for the better or the worse, more so in that mule. So if you got a mare with a great disposition and she's so sweet and quiet, you're going to have a very, very gentle mule that's going to be so sweet and very easygoing. So yeah, uh, it's the hybrid stuff, Daniel, that kicks us in the butt that you just don't know. It's hard to measure for that kind of thing, and you just can basically look at the generalities of things like, well, okay, the average mule does this, the average mule does that, and kind of try to figure things out from there. And then you throw the breed differences in, right? So is there a difference between a thoroughbred and Arabians? All day long. Difference in draft horses versus, Welch pony all day long, right? And so you have to measure for that too, those differences there, no doubt. So yeah, it's kind of fun.
So you mentioned Tom's quote about having to treat a mule the way you should treat a horse. My similar quote, I think, is a Ray Hunt quote, but it is that a mule is just like a horse, only more so. And I guess
Yeah.
that sort of exemplifies that expansion of all of those things. I have not ridden a ton of mules. I have probably started a few dozen of them, and really the biggest difference that I would say I see in them is that they just are a little slower. They take me a little longer to get to the same place because you kind of do have that processing time in there. Um, I also, from the clinician perspective, and you're talking about awareness and attention and all. I think one of the hardest things to get people to recognize in their horse or mule or whatever is those moments where they're thinking, and you need to just hold tight. This is not the point that you want to distract or add more, or you need to just not get in their way and let them process. And people tend to have, they'll ride horses for a couple decades before they're recognizing that that's what's happening in this moment, and you need to process. And so to me, the mule part of it, because they process so much more, it's almost like a superpower for your people that are learning mulemanship, because they're gonna be years ahead of the horse person in figuring out what processing looks like. And boom, plus you got those two big antennas up here, and so it's a lot more obvious to see this processing take
Yeah, no
place.
kidding.
So have you
Yeah.
found that, like if people ride mules for a while and then they go to horses, they're like, "Oh man, this horse thing's easy. Like
Yeah.
this is a piece of cake, you know?"
I forget how easy some horses are. I forget about it. Like I went probably a 3 month stretch, didn't ride any horses for about 3 months, just riding mules. And that's a long time, because I'm riding all of them all the time, right? But I probably went three months without getting on a horse and working on it. And I went to a clinic, and uh, it was one of those clinics I flew to, and I got to use a horse for a demo. And I just start tooling around with it, just playing around. And oh yeah, I was like, wow, that's quick, Um, when you utilize the skills that you have to use on a mule, you use those for a horse, the results are just exponential. I think every horseman should have to work with the mules first, and because it'll make you so dang good with your horses, it'll come smoother and you'll appreciate a lot of things. Um, it's that process time and that soak time that you're talking about that does make the difference. Um, like I said, I'm not saying you should, but you can kind of push your horse along a little bit, and you get away with a lot of things because of the flight. Like I can kind of get away with stuff because I kind of scared them into it, honestly, right? I kind of spooked them into it, and I get away with that because they went and it responded and it was fine. But with the mules, sometimes if I put too much pressure, then they just freeze up. They just freeze up and go up, and yeah. I mean, because they'll skip the flight a lot of times and just go right to the freeze, and that's what irritates the people that don't know, because they're like, "Gosh, this stupid thing." And it's like, no, it ain't stupid. You just pushed it to the point and just froze up, and because they don't have that flight ability. So, I was working with a guy last week in my clinic, and he brought a nice horse, a really nice horse to the clinic, and he was doing a good job, but I could see he was getting a lot of stuff done through a lot of force. Like he's just pushing it and making it happen. And yeah, if we were there judging just maneuvers and I was just looking at maneuvers, yeah, he'd be doing great. Yeah, he was executing all the maneuvers. However, if we were judging the horse's frame of mind, if we were just judging the horse's mental state, we would it would measure in the flight. I know it would. It was on flight. Now, not in a flight as in run away, but it was in the flight. And I'm always thinking about that gauge on all my mules and my horses. You got that sweet middle ground, that optimal learning frame of mind when they're just right there in the green zone. And it's just good. We tip them a little this way. Uh-oh, you're getting into some flight. Tip them a little this way. Uh-oh, you're getting into the freeze. And I don't want to. The freeze and the flight is just as bad as one another. There's none. Neither is worse than the other. They're both bad. I want to be in that green zone all the time. And it's just that with the mule, when you get into that freeze, they're frozen. When you get into flight, which is rare, it's not as common, but you get there, then you'll know about it too. So you just got to stay in that green zone all the time. And that's what makes a good horseman, is reading that. You talked about just soaking and just leave them alone, you know. Uh, one of my mentors, he says, "Hey, yeah, you just have them soak and smoke a couple of cigarettes. And I said, I'm like, I don't smoke. It's like, well, the time that it would take to smoke 2 cigarettes, leave them alone. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't know. I don't know how long that takes. I guess it depends on how much of a dragon you are. But the point is to be quiet and leave them alone, let them think, let them learn. And that stuff, that's like, compound interest when you do that. They learn very quickly. And so I guess when I take the time early on with the babies, with the young ones, the colts, I take that time and I help that mule get into the learning frame of mind and basically help that young mule learn how to learn. Then by the time I'm more advanced, it's clicking along, and there wouldn't be any difference in the horses and the mules, Daniel, later on. Uh, but I think it's that early stage that if we can just really dive into that and get good at helping them learn to learn, it's going to benefit us. It doesn't matter if you're riding a mule or a horse. It'd be the same thing with a horse. Get that horse in that learning frame of mind early on, and you are set up for a lifetime of success. If early on you're getting stuff done out of intimidation or a little fear, getting into the flight too much, it's going to catch up to you later on. It's going to catch up when you're in situations. So, and for what I'm trying to do personally with my mules, we're going to be working cows on the in this canyon country. It's tough. It's hard. Not only am I trying to keep a hold of that cow and track that cow, but we're also navigating terrain that's very challenging that I need that mule to think through it and pay attention. Because I can't afford to have them get busted up way back in. It'd be a bad deal. A misstep is a big deal back there for either of us, right? So I want that mule in a good frame of mind. I want him thinking, and that all starts way back in the beginning, just like you said, way back in the beginning.
Um, Ty, I think it's about time I need to bring our sponsor up before I forget about them. Go ahead and pay the bills for the episode here. So let's
Yeah.
get into this one. As usual, we try and pair up a good sponsor with each guest, and I found a very unique one that I think kind of goes with this one pretty well. So our sponsor for this episode is Don's Donka Goats Are Us. You've heard of mules and maybe even Z-donks. Let me ask you, have you ever wanted all the brains of a mule, but more agility and quickness? Through the modern advances in GMO and reproductive technologies, we're now able to bring you the world's first long-eared hybrid that's hypoallergenic, agile, and quick, and has the coolest name on the block, the Donka Goat. Our founder, Don Quixote, was a lifelong mule enthusiast. His only complaint was that traversing 20 miles in rough country sometimes took a lot longer than was convenient. One day, Don was riding along in a canyon. He was pretty sure he'd left the water on at the corrals, and the winding route he'd have to take back to the home place would take him another 7 hours. He looked up and saw a mountain goat carelessly ambling over the top of the ridge Don and Bello were spending 5 hours to go around. The thought hit him just as a rock falling from the cliff face did too. Turns out Don didn't leave the water on, but the ideas flowed like water, and Don hit the local library. 14 years later, and we're ready to sell Donka goats to the public in limited quantities. Let me ask you, if you had an animal that was as agile in rough terrain as a mountain goat, trustworthy, had the longest ears imaginable, a 1 in 4 chance of having horns, would you be interested? What if I told you that this animal was also hyperallergenic and could produce wool? Well, our Angora Donka goats are the top tier of what's available in the current world of ridden hybrids. We can't tell you more because Daniel charges by the word. So look us up and find out all the cool things about Donka goats. Don Quixote is waiting for you. All right.
Man, that's awesome. I
Bills are
was
paid.
really excited. I've been so excited for the sponsor part. I'm like, oh, what did Daniel come up with, man? This is gonna be good. But you blew it out of the park. That was even better than I thought.
I hope I didn't disappoint. Thank you.
That's awesome. I want one. I need to get one of them.
It sounds fun, doesn't it? Can you just hopping around on a cliff's edge on a on a mountain goat? That'd be
There's
fun.
been so many times I wish I could ride a mountain goat. Like, you know, in those high mountains in Utah, like those mountain goats, it's crazy what they go up. It's just crazy. I'm like, that would be sweet to ride. I'd probably do too much. I'd probably push the limit, but that would be cool. So maybe
So
there's a chance.
yeah, you were talking earlier about fly fishing and packing and all of that stuff. I like to hike quite a bit, so I love riding the horses, but I like backpacking and all that kind of stuff too. And for a long time, I have wanted to get into the pack goats. Are you familiar with that at all?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big thing out here, man. It really is. You come up on them and these guys got these goats and they're like their little buddies, you know.
Hmm.
They're just like their pals and they'll follow them around everywhere. They don't
Hmm.
even like lead. They might lead
Yeah.
one and they're just all their little friends just following along.
You
You
don't have to
know,
bring any food for them because they just forage
hey,
right along the trail as you
it's,
go.
you wouldn't need
Yep.
that bucket for the high line anymore. You could just put up your little you have to bend over to put your high line up.
Oh, I don't want 20 of them or something, but I think five or six would be pretty cool with, and each goat can carry like 50 pounds. I mean, it would be, you know, I
Well,
saw,
and if you get hungry, I mean,
yeah, there's,
you
yeah, yep,
know,
little
there you go.
cabrito out there.
There you go.
So the only thing I haven't seen is like I would also want the option of I'm gonna ride a horse and the goats are gonna follow me. And I haven't
Yep.
necessarily seen anybody do that, but I don't really see why you couldn't. And if it didn't, you just bring one border collie with you and he keeps the goats herded up to you and there you are, right? I mean, uh,
My buddy went on a pack trip last year, and he went with a guy that did pack his goats. So they rode their mules, and they packed the guy's goats. And I said, so what was that like? Like, how was your experience? And he's like, yeah, those goats just followed along, like they just love the mules, like their friend, like they just follow the mule along. And the guy kept his mule out there with all the goats, like they're all like
mhm.
it's their little herd, their little herd. So and yeah, whatever you're into, I don't know.
I don't know what it is about. I'm assuming it's the same with mules, but like goats and horses go together like peanut butter and jelly. I mean, they just pair up naturally. I've seen where we've got goats out in the pasture and the horse will walk over and straddle the goat and scratch its belly on the goat's horns while the goat is grazing, like just using him to scratch his belly.
Yeah.
And the goat doesn't care. I mean, it's just it doesn't make sense, but they just go along. They get it. So, uh,
We had a goat named Dave. And Dave would so he was like he would come along on so I never took him off the property, but you know, it's back when I was training for the public. We had this goat and I would take the colts out. We just had like 40 acres of just sagebrush. So I'd go out and ride around the brush and old Dave, he'd just follow me along like he was just a dog. He just come along and hung out. I had to get rid of him though because all my clients would come over and they got their brand new trucks, their nice trucks, and old Dave thought he better jump up on the hood of every truck and take a crap. So that got me in. That got me in. Yeah, my clientele went down that year because of Dave. He would jump up on their hoods and oh my gosh, Dave. So we got rid of Dave.
well, speaking of packing, why don't you tell us a little bit about packing mules and any differences? And you're probably going to bring this up. So a further question I was going to ask you would be about some of the conformational differences between a mule and a horse because they aren't built just the same. So, like, do you believe in let's pack this young mule for a year or two before we ride him? I know that some people take that path and all. So, how does packing fit into the
Yeah.
picture for you?
You know, I love packing. Packing's a big part of my life. I've packed my whole life. I grew up, you know, my dad taking us on pack trips. We go back in and fish and or hunt, packing out elk, packing out deer. So it's a big part of my life, and I love it. I wish there's just something about going out and living like a hobo for a week, on the back of a mule, and just being out there. And there's something that special about like just having everything on your mule like that. Like it's your whole camp. They're just going like that. I love it. But as far as the training parts of things, I actually like to get my colts riding first, for the most part, before I pack. Um, I will often ride the greener mules, the younger ones, and I'll pack the experienced one. And the reason is, um, if I'm riding that greener colt, and let's say I'm pulling a pack mule or two, and I get to a situation, and I need to kind of work on that youngster. Well, I'll use that opportunity. I can just drop my lead rope, and the good old pack mule just going to go eat some grass and stand around while I do a little bit. Um, and I've got along better doing it that way than the opposite of riding old reliable and packing the youngster. You know, packing the youngster. Situations come up, and it's easy to start making poor choices. Like I got to get to camp, and well, we already talked about like the water example. Well, it's pretty easy just to drag one across the water, and you shouldn't do that. But it can be tempting to do that when it's the other way around. Um, and then also, I have seen way more packing wrecks than I've seen riding wrecks. And that sounds crazy to even say because there's a lot less people packing, but oh my gosh, the wrecks that people have packing. So what I've learned is that if I can get my young ones riding pretty good and they're doing well, and they can carry me around, and they're used to me moving around and throwing my rope, and uh and I've worked on stuff, then the packing comes pretty easy. So I'll do that. However, what I do like to do, Daniel, is I like to pony all my colts out. Like just they can wear a saddle or something, but I'm not necessarily packing my camp on them. And they might pack a little weight. Like I was telling you about the sheep guys and the cow guys. I'll pack salt and stuff on them before I ride them, and that does them a lot of good. Packing salt, man, that's a great thing to do because they get used to packing some weight, and it's hard to overload. Well, at least how I do it. It's kind of hard to overload salt, you know. So you're not going to push it too hard, uh, because you can only fit so much on. It's just the way the bulk of it. You just can't. It ain't like I can throw 300 pounds of salt on there and get away with it. I'm not going to get away with that. So, anyways, I like packing salt on the babies sometimes. Um, but yeah, they seem to go pretty good. As far as the conformation stuff goes, there might be some differences in what people prefer for the riding or for the packing, though. For the riding, um, I like a medium bone. You know, just think of suspension. And all the same conformation things that you kind of like to see in a horse, you kind of like to see that in a mule too. There's a differences and how they're going to walk and how they're going to step based on all that conformation. But for the packing, like if I'm talking to a commercial packer or some of these Forest Service guys, they like the half draft or the quarter draft mules, heavy boned, thick. They like them thick and short. Uh, you know, um, Not thick and tall, because they got to load these packs, right? Uh, and not too short to where they're catching panniers on limbs and stuff and deadfall. But so they kind of like to see them about 14 to 15 hands and heavier boned, which for riding I don't I got one mule that's pretty heavy boned. Somebody might say she's medium heavy, and you feel it. It's a difference. That's not great suspension. It's like driving your pickup truck around all the time versus driving a little car around. There's a difference for sure. So, but when you're packing, they'll hold up longer, those heavier boned animals, and they can take the hits. So, uh, the conformation on mules, though, just generally, Daniel, is kind of wild. Back to that hybrid stuff we're talking about, man. Yeah, you just never know. Who knows? Who knows what you're going to get? And the interesting thing is, for the general trail riding and for the packing, you can get away with a lot of stuff. That like if you were, if you're trying to make a reining horse or a cutting horse or a jumper or something, that conformation is going to make a big deal in your performance. Like, you know, you got something that's cowhocked and pigeon-toed, and you're like, you don't even want to try it. Well, the mules, if you're going out on the trail, man, there's going to be a lot of stuff you're going to get away with. It's not that big of a deal. It's not that detrimental to you. So, which is a good thing because it's hard to know what you're going to get for sure.
So do you have a preference? Like I would say one of the standards with a mule is the wither in the back and all is going to be shaped different. So if we have
Yeah.
a saddle on there and going downhill, it would be a lot more likely to slide up. So it'd be common for mules to ride like a britchin or a crooper.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, I'll just ask you first, what is a britchin and what is a crooper? And where might you use one versus the other? Or do you have a general preference or what?
Yeah. So I do use both depending on the application. Primarily, I use a britchin, and a britchin. What people will often comment, I get this on my social media all the time, Daniel. They say, "What? How come your mule's wearing a harness around their butt?" Like, well, I, I guess it'd be part of the harness. It's called a britchin, but it is
You got your
it is
breast
the
collar on the wrong end there, buddy. Don't you know
yeah.
what you're doing?
Yeah, and so, but it is a heavy duty, generally heavy duty leather piece. They make all kinds of different types of synthetic materials too, but a piece of leather that goes around the butt, you want it just below the point of the hip, and that's going to help keep the saddle back. So it attaches to your rigging rings on both sides of your saddle, your cinch rigging ring, and it attaches to often there's D-rings right behind your cantle that it attaches to. So there's four straps usually that they attach to, and that'll keep your saddle back. And I use the britchin when I'm in the mountains. When I'm riding out, I use a britchin when I rope for sure. When I rope, I got to have that britchin on. So those are all the applications that I use it for: steep country and roping. Uh, when I'm doing my clinics and if I'm just gonna be riding around that arena all day, Daniel, I put the crooper on, and the crooper is just a strap that goes from behind the cantle. There's usually a D there, or sometimes there's two Ds there, and it goes back and just goes around the base of the tail. So using a crooper in really steep country is discouraged because that's just way too much pressure if you're going down extensive downhills, long downhills, steep downhills. It's just too much pressure on the base of the tail. And I have actually seen a tail get snapped from using a crooper, and that just made me sick. I saw that when I was a kid, and it just so I never use a crooper in steep country. But if I'm just riding around the arena doing a clinic and we're just working on some stops and we're working on transitions, yeah, I'll put the crooper on. That'll be plenty to keep my saddle back, just help keep it secure uh, on the flat. And there's some people that kind of do different versions or combine versions. There's all kinds of little, just like you see in the bit world, Daniel, there's all kinds of gimmicky things people do in between. But britchin and cripper are my main two. I primarily use a britchin for sure.
Um, this will be a little out of order, and I was taking some notes while you were talking there, and I forgot to go back and ask you this. But with the packing, I liked what you were saying there about riding the greener one and packing the more advanced one. And I wanted to ask you this because I feel like one of the more unnatural things that we teach horses and mules that people don't really think about too much is all of the lateral stuff, the move your shoulder out and away and move laterally. And if you watch them in pasture and all, they don't move like that very often at all. So we greatly exaggerate the amount that they're going to do that. And I haven't packed a ton myself, certainly not nearly as much as you have, but I have enough. And like one of the bigger pain in the necks when they're learning to pack is all of the trees that they're going to crash your stuff into, because they're used to being able to pass right through here, and I'm this wide and I've been this wide my whole life, and they don't take into account that now something sticks 2 feet out on the right and left, and so they crash your stuff into a whole bunch of trees for a while. And so do you think riding that horse and maybe or that mule, and now I have pushed your shoulder over so you didn't run my knee into this tree here, and you've done that a multitude of times, now you've kind of brought some awareness to them, and so now they kind of have a tool they wouldn't have otherwise had, and that gives you a little more success. Do you feel like that plays at all, or
Yeah, I
no?
do. And that's kind of one of them chicken or the egg type of questions, because I'll talk to somebody else and say, well, yeah, well, that's why we pack them first, because I don't want to sacrifice my knee. They say, well, I ride them first because I don't want to sacrifice my good, expensive camp gear, my pack gear, and my panniers and all that. All that stuff's very expensive. So I have a lot of success, because I train for a living, I ride for a living, that I can manage that colt and not get slammed into the tree myself, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
can do that because I have those skills. But a lot of people that don't have those skills, then they'd ask me, I say, well, yeah, I guess pack them first and you'll save yourself a lot of busted knees. So I guess it depends on the person's skill level. But for me, yeah, man, it makes me cringe when those mules slam my pack boxes into trees. Oh, I hate it. Just like,
Mm-hmm.
oh my gosh, mule, don't do that, you know? And um, now I told you about packing salt a little bit, and that does mitigate a lot of that too. Uh, you know, we're packing like to the sheep guys, we're packing bags of salt. It's loose salt. And so we got canvas panniers and stuff, and they slam into a tree. Well, it just bounces them off it, but the bags of salt take a lot of the brunt out of it, so it's not just ricocheting that mule off of a tree, but it is pushing them off the tree. So there's a nice little balance in there where if I'm putting like I primarily pack with hard boxes and they slam into a tree, man, they're busting my box or it's busting
Mm-hmm.
them. I've had mules just ricochet off of a tree and fall. And you're kind of like, well, don't run into the tree. But I mean, that's the common sense thing. But they're just a baby. They don't know. Now they do, I suppose. But it was at the cost of, maybe hurting your mule. And it's at the cost of dang sure hurting your pack gear, and having to do repair up there on the mountain, which is always a blast. So yeah, I prefer to ride because I can manage that. I can do a good job. I'm not going to get ran into a tree anymore. There's been plenty of times I have, but I'm not going to do that anymore. I can manage that. I'll be all right.
I feel very validated. I'm glad we had this talk because I have always thought that kind of same thing. I'm like, man, that 2 years of packing that green animal, that's got to take a different kind of toll. I'd rather have control of that and teach them how to weave and move around, and yeah, or let
Yeah.
them process. Like, you don't drag them past, you let them, they
Hmm.
pause and they kind of slowly work their way through and navigate the obstacle course they're learning. And um
Exactly. Yeah.
So sticking with the confirmation question, feet, I would think this would be one of the trickier parts of this because a mule's foot and a horse's foot are not really the same. The mule foot is to me more akin to the donkey foot, a lot more heel. The angles are different, a straighter um hoof and all. So does that complicate life for you, or maybe finding, like, I've seen a farrier who had the odd mule thrown at him and he took all of the heel off, and it was kind of a, oh my goodness, what have you done kind of a thing. And um so I guess I'll throw that at you. If a person is to get a
Yeah.
mule, are they gonna have farrier difficulties the rest of their life, or
I
what?
think, well, my answer might surprise you because I think between a horse, a mule, and a donkey, the mule's the easiest to maintain, the hardest to maintain, as long as you know how to maintain it. And you mentioned the biggest thing that happens, people cutting a lot of heel off. Biggest mistake. I've done it. I've made that mistake myself, learned from it. I'm trying not to do it again. Um, Biggest suggestion, if you're working on your own mule's feet, get a hoof gauge. You want to be between 55 and 60 degrees on a mule hoof. That's going to fit them good. But let me tell you why I think it's the easiest to maintain. Because once you have the correct angles and you know how to take care of that foot, the donkeys they need dry. The donkeys need dry. Those are desert dwellers all the way, right? So I was telling you about all the donkeys on the East Coast. Well, they pay the price. That's constant white line, constant thrush, a lot of maintenance on a donkey foot in the moisture. If they're out west in the dry, I wouldn't have to worry about it a whole lot. Uh, the horse hooves, same thing. It's much easier to stone bruise a horse hoof. Abscesses much more prevalent in the horse hoof. Um, Now, both those things can be mitigated on the donkey and the horse, but that mule, as long as you're taking care of the angles, like I mentioned, and keeping them cleaned, all the same maintenance applies to all those animals, right? Same maintenance, but they're pretty hardy and they last and they hold up pretty good. So, um, I think it's mostly just the education, Daniel, on all right, well, what's the appropriate angle here? And that's why, like I said, anybody that's got a mule that's doing their own trimming, or if they're hiring a farrier, make sure you don't eyeball that thing. Don't eyeball that thing. Put a hoof gauge on that thing and get it right. Get it right there because it makes a difference. So, uh, usually the question that comes with that, Daniel's shoeing. And they say,
Mhm.
well, do you shoe or you don't shoe? Both. I have some mules that I keep shoes on all the time. Uh, and some mules that I just ride more than their hoof grows. I mean, that's why you put a shoe on, right? That's the whole point of putting a shoe on. So if I ride more than it's going to grow, and I'm burning more hoof off than they're growing out, then I need to put shoes on. I got others that I rotate a lot. I got some mules I've never put a shoe on, and I can go ride a couple of days in this rough rocky. I'm in Utah. It's rock. It's rock. Everywhere's rock, and I can go ride, and they hold up pretty good. And as long as I keep them trimmed up decent, going good, life is fine. Keep nice edges. It should be fine. But I can turn them out and ride them again next week and not have a big deal. So, um, yeah, another typical horsemanship answer. It depends. Right there. It
Mhm.
totally depends. Yep, some shoe, some don't, some both. Uh, I do an annual pack trip that's a week long every summer. We go to different destinations, and I put shoes on when I go on that pack trip. I'm going to be in that sharp granite, guaranteed. We're going to be doing a lot of miles in that week for sure. And I just throw shoes on and I don't have to worry about it. I bring a couple extra shoes, some nails, a couple simple shoeing tools just in case I need to reset or something because I'm not the best shoer, or whatever. But and then when I get back from that trip, I pull them off. So I just use it for the week, pull them off, no big deal. So yeah, like I said, typical horsemanship answer. It depends.
Um, so I'll ask you the next, and I completely agree with that. Like I don't there you we kind of have this whole debate now, the barefooters that believe that there's no application for a shoe that should ever be done or ethical, and I don't think that's true. There just are things you can do with a shoe that you cannot do with boots or any of the other things out there. But do you have a straight answer on like drill tech or borium or something like that? Is that a necessity where you're at, or it depends once again?
No, me personally, I have never used it. I
Okay.
just I haven't needed to. Now, um, that might change for me this winter. I'm going, if you're familiar with the Meat Eater crew, big
Oh yeah, yeah.
television network and all that,
Uh-huh.
we're going out on a lion hunt with them and doing a
Dude,
special on mules. Now,
congratulations. That is
yeah,
awesome. Very good. I'm tickled to hear that.
it's gonna be fun. Good old Clay Newcomb. We're going out with him. Anyways, now we're going to be crossing some frozen streams, and I don't think I'll necessarily need shoes but that's not the point. The point is that we're going to cross these streams, a lot of ice. And so I'm probably going to get some shoes put on, have some Boreum or Drill Tech on them just for crossing the ice. And the ice breaks enough that it gives them the flexibility. Now, in the summertime or any other time going across like slick rock or granite, the Boreum Drill Tech does not offer enough flexibility, and you'll bow tendons, you'll tear stuff up. It especially like the sandstone that drill tech, that boreum sticks into that sandstone, and they got to make these little micro rotations, and that is so much stress on them. So we do a clinic every year. We call it our Extreme Trail Clinic, aka our rock crawling clinic. We come out here and play on rocks, and people ask me, "Hey, should I put boreum on?" No, please don't. You can chew them. It's fine. Bring shoes. It's going to be a little bit slippery, but that's okay. It's not going to be like a dangerous slippery, a little bit. But I'd rather have a little slip than not enough and have you hurt your mule, get them sore. Um, so yeah, I might use it. I might use it this winter for the first time ever. And like my buddies that do run hounds, there's a lot of houndsmen out here, and they go all winter long, and they're going along those rivers and the creeks, and it's ice, and they say, "Oh yeah, for sure, have it." And so I guess that would be the application for it. But everything else I do, no, I want them either barefoot or just regular flat steel shoes, nothing special.
All right. Well, I'm glad I asked that. The ice, I can also see a good application for it on there. What you were talking about kind of reminds me of like the old guys that would ride heel calks on everything, and that always makes me think of a horse that's got a shelf life of like 5 or 6 years, and then he's going to be pretty much crippled for the
Yeah.
rest of his life. And yep, I'm I'm the same opinion there, I guess.
Yeah, there
I
might be
guess.
applications, in some situations, whatever. There's like the guys that ride the feed yards, riding through slick crap all the time.
Mhm.
They'll use there's certain types of shoes to have a little bit of grab, a little toe on them, a little heel on them, or whatever, and just because they're riding through slippery stuff all the time. So, yeah, it's hard to give definitive answers on all the feet stuff because it depends. People ask me, "Do you ever use any type of hill boots?" And I said, "I've won't. Well, yeah, I used them one time. I had a mule that I bought, and it was delivered to me." And the guy said, "Oh, don't worry, I got it trimmed up for you." And I was like, "Oh no, don't. I do my own. Like I just let me do my own, right?" I was like, "Whatever." Well, she shows up and she is so lame. She is cut so short and too short for shoes. I can't put shoes on her. I mean, tap a nail in there, I'm gonna hit something. Like there's no way. So yeah, I bought some hill boots um, for the first time, some hoof boots for the first time, and and before that, I'd say, yeah, I've never used them, but I guess there's an application for, I, what is the scripture? Blessed are the flexible, so they shall not get bent out of shape, right? Like it, I don't know, never say never on some things. But
Um,
I'm not going to use hoof boots like on my trail rides, or if I'm out working cows. There's no way. Like I would lose them every 10 feet, and
yeah,
the terrain. So again, yeah, it depends.
yeah. I had the same problem. I have a good friend who is a confirmed barefooter. She's not like a zealot about it, like there's no world with shoes, but she was trying to convert me to hoof boots, and Um, I think they're okay if you're just ambling along or maybe like the endurance people, but if you're stopping and turning and things like that, yeah, my horse was out of those things in about 10 minutes every time I tried to use them.
Yeah.
I couldn't actually keep them on. Um, so anyway, each to their own. The final question for you, this may be the hot potato, so if you don't want to mess with it, then that's perfectly fine. But I did want to ask you, so you've got a few different crews out there that are kind of doing this extreme mule stuff, and every time you see one of their videos, they're sliding down a 20-foot thing or jumping off a cliff into this pool of water out in the middle of whatever. And I just wanted to ask if you had any feelings on that stuff, if you felt like that was
Yeah.
realistic or kind of gave a black eye maybe to some of the community, or no, good for them, go for it, whatever. Do you have any thoughts on that kind of stuff?
Yeah, it's a lot of them have fallen into a trap of the social media trap, Daniel, that and you know as well as I do, social media is a beast that is never satisfied. You got to keep feeding it. And you got to get them likes and you got to get them comments, right? And yesterday's stuff is no longer good enough for today in that world, in that media world, right? You got to. So I understand why they're doing the things they're doing. It's for likes and views and for comments. I get it. My avenue is different. I'm into education. So whatever I'm going to share is going to be educational at some point. Even when I'm doing basic videos like say, hey, I'm loading up. I'm heading to Washington today. Little video. Well, there'll be a little horsemanship tip in there. Oh, this is how I'm uh tying my mule in the trailer. Whatever, right? There's always education value in everything I do. Now, that business, what they're doing is totally entertainment. And I think that gets him in trouble. Now, way back when, and you can look it up, you might like this. My father-in-law was the original Extreme Mules guy. So he had a YouTube channel called Extreme Mules. Now, the stuff that
Okay.
we were all doing back then, and you can see me on there, I was just a little baby boy. I was just a little guy. I couldn't grow a beard, and I had hair on top here. So I was just little. So, you know, uh, okay. Now that stuff that we did back then, which I think was a little bit of the precursor to what's happening now, it was nothing. It wouldn't even make the news now. It's not cool. It's not even cool. What I like to see is just like any other sport or event or discipline or whatever, is how can we demonstrate what these animals are capable of? But within the realms of being safe, within the realms of being being a good horseman, being a good muleman, good animal husbandry, just being a good caretaker of these animals. Well, there's limits to that. So I just as much as anybody else, I want to know what my mule can do, and I want to, you know, show what the mule or the horse is capable of. There's situations you put them in. I get into more trouble in the ranching world than I do actually just the trail riding stuff, because, well, there's a cow down in that canyon. How are you going to get down there? I got to find the safest way to get down in there, but I also got to be strategic. How am I going to get out of there with that cow? Right? I got to get out of there. Oh, it's got a calf. Great. Now we got 2 for 1. Here we go. Um, so I got to be strategic in how I do it, and I'm not doing it for the views. I'm not doing it for the publicity of it. So um, there's a there's another media company not far from me in Utah actually that makes a lot of videos, and we've chatted, we've collaborated and talked before, and we've talked about that. I said I do my stuff for education. Yeah, well, they do their stuff for views. It's for entertainment. They're not trying to educate anybody. They're just you know just for the views of it. So I don't like to see animals get hurt. I'll tell you that. I don't like that at all. I think that pushes the limit when they're hurting an animal. Now, I don't like to see people get hurt either, but a lot of times people get hurt because of stupid stuff they're doing, the choices they make. So if you get hurt making you decide you want to go skydiving today, good for you. And you break your leg when you land. All right. Don't blame that on God. Don't blame that on anybody else. You're the one that jumped out of the plane, bud. And you know you're going to hit the dirt at some point. So it's just like when I would I get beat up or banged up when I was rodeoing, right? Hey, I can't be mad at anybody else. I signed up for that. It was on me. That's on me. But it's just the stuff. Now I do understand accidents happen. I've had accidents happen too. And just freak deals, where the ground gives out, your animal slips, something happens. But I hope that's never because of a position that I put them in just trying to get a view or trying to get a comment. And so that's the line that I draw. I want to see what my mule can do, but at the safest level. I was telling you about we call our extreme trail clinic. Well, to some of these guys, they would see us say extreme trail clinic and they're like, yeah, no, boy, that's nothing. But to us, it is. It is the top level of what I'm willing to do, um, and show what my mule can do and be able to ride through it and be able to do it. And the matter of the fact too is, Daniel, in a lot of this country, especially Utah, Utah's rough. Utah's canyon country. There are some places, you want to come out and ride with me sometime? Come out. I'll show you some petroglyphs, some Indian ruins, some all this cool stuff. And we're going to have to ride some really hard stuff to get there. And then we're going to have to tie up. And then you and I are going to have to hike our butts down there and try not to fall on our own faces to get down to see some of those things. So to enjoy a lot of the things, you're definitely going to have to push it. Because I'm also not one of those people that's like, oh well, geez, Ty's just, he don't want to do anything, No, I do. I'm going to do it, and I'm not going to avoid, a job to be done. If there's cows that got to get out of that canyon, we're going to do it. But I'm going to do it safe way as I can and take care of my stock, take care of my horses, my mules. So that's me, man.
Yeah, I like it. Yep, I see. Yeah, people doing things that it makes you kind of scratch your head. Like, why wouldn't you have just done this instead? Like that. Maybe that's an age thing. When I was 18, I probably would have been gung ho to do it the dumb fun way, and now I'm kind of like, yeah, let's just go around. How about that?
And there's things like that have changed for me too. Like, let's take an obstacle like jumps. Like, I used to love to jump. I loved it. I loved to jump up on rocks, jump over deadfall. If I was in the performance world, I would be playing around with the hunter jumper folks for sure. Like, I thought that was so cool to jump. Now now the jumps I'm not really into it. I like the technical riding to where you see this big old rock face and you see all these crazy boulders and crazy little, slope or something. Okay, how can we get up through all that and get up to that point? And that is really fun to me. And it's not all the big jumps and the big impact stuff. Um, I guess a lot of it changed too when I broke my back. I broke my back in 2008, and that sure changed the wanting to jump in the impact stuff for sure. That'll do it to you, because jumping off, that hurt quite a lot. And how I broke my back, it was just the dumbest thing. I got bucked off. I just lost a stirrup and I just got bucked off and I just landed kind of funny on my lower back, and that was it. Just, it was a compression fracture, nothing wild, but it was enough that it made the jumps hurt. So I was like, oh wow, this is different. Now something hurts. What the heck? Right? So
That, yeah. That's one of my greatest fears. I'll have survived all the things I survived, and then I'm gonna die in some really stupid, simple, like tripped on a step or something. And yeah, that was the end of Daniel. Rather than fighting a bear the way I was meant to go out,
yeah, exactly. Yes. Yep.
Oh,
But
well, Ty, I really appreciate your time this morning, and your patience with me. I know us getting to the point where we actually had this interview was a little chaotic, so I appreciate you hanging in there and being patient with me. I have enjoyed this conversation tremendously. We will, for everybody out there listening, we'll definitely have links to the things that Ty mentioned: the Outfitter Supply, the On the Range YouTube channel, and then, of course, all of Ty's information, his website, his social media stuff, and then his podcast as well, Everyday Mulemanship. Definitely worth your time to crank that up while you have some road trips and stuff. I've been binging it ever since I met Ty at that event, and it's definitely something you should go check out and listen to. So Ty, thank you for your time this morning. It's been great chatting with you.
hey man, thank you, and thanks for all you do, Daniel, for the horse world and educating people and helping people. There's plenty to go around. There's a lot of folks that need help, and so you're doing good things out there, and I appreciate you too, sir. So thanks for having me on the show.
We'll see you next week for another episode of Adult Onset Horsemanship. I've been your host, Daniel Dolphin.